Ooh. Right. Look at that on
And we're streaming.
YouTube.
Ooh.
Says
Okay,
we're
this is
streaming
cute.
it, huh?
Good morning, Bubble Man. How are you,
Good
Marcus?
morning. Welcome to Hash Church 3.0, episode 28. Episode 28. That's the
Wow, we're up to that already, huh? That was fast and frozen.
that's not a good sign.
I hear you.
Oh, good, good. I thought my internet connection's a little iffy. So let me share this into the room real quick so everyone can come over here and hang out with us.
All right. This meeting is being live streamed.
Was that through your speaker?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out. I go to the YouTube to turn it on to figure out what's going on here.
Totally.
Oh,
welcome.
When I went there, I went to an older video, and it's like, "Hi, it's Bubble Man."
Hey, what's going on? I should turn my camera on for gosh sakes.
Yeah, everybody's just looking at me and going, "Wow, look at that stoner."
What's going on with that guy? He seems hardcore.
Everybody.
Speaking of stoner, here comes Kylie Stoner.
Morning, Kylie. Well, it's a holiday morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, I guess it's the holiday season per se, for those who like holidays to the season. And let's see, pretty excited because next weekend is the Emerald Cups Ball, the Harvest Ball. So people are, needless to say, excited in Northern California because we finally get to hang out just in time for another variant. Yeah. So,
oh my God.
Regardless, it's exciting to see. Hey, everybody, please send out love and prayers for Wade Laughter. Wade's kind of at home suffering. He's been working with us at his VAC, as unfortunately has some health conditions that have him down and in bed. He's suffering right now. So anybody who can send love to Wade, please reach out to him and give him our best. He's suffering, unfortunately, for some broken ribs and things like that. And he's just having a hard time right now. So any of those who Wade, please reach out to him, send him love, and give him support. He really needs it right now. He's in a low spot health-wise, and he's working on getting his way back, but he's hurting and needs love. So please send it all to Wade right now.
Definitely sending it to Wade. I spoke with him briefly a week or two ago, and he was telling me about his ribs and his back and how he's just kind of laid out right now. So that's terrible to hear, especially because Wade's just the greatest person ever. It's just like the most empathetic, compassionate, like kind human being. You can just hear it in his voice whenever he speaks. So our love is coming out to you for sure, Wade. The whole Hash Church family is thinking about you today and sending good vibes. There's 100+ people in the room right now. And welcome to Kylie Stoner and Colin Palmer. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for the invitation.
Good to finally meet you, Kylie. Been following your work for quite a bit. It's some really amazing stuff, man. Still haven't had a chance to try your stuff, but can't wait to the day when I get to do that. So
hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah. See you doing all the trips across the states during COVID. Hopefully your gear's getting out to all the amazing people in the community to be able to understand how incredible the experience is. I mean, I know, a lot of people, everyone that's tried your device has been hands down, seems to say all across the board, it's, the best that they've ever experienced. So kudos to you, man.
Indux Labs. Trust me, we've been trying to this whole the day I hooked up with Kylie, I swear to God, they made it so you couldn't ship their units to Canada. It was like, what do you mean you can't ship these units to Canada? So we're a little hurting up here. I did get an induction unit, and I don't know what company it was from. Let me grab it real quick. It is not what you've got going on, Kylie, in any way, shape, or form. I think the problem with this particular Indux unit is that it's just, they haven't figured out how to make it more sensitive. It's just like, it's insane. It like, you can turn the bowl to like red hot vapor in half a second. And so I don't even know the name of the company, but this is the one that I got years ago and kind of got to see basically what it was potentially about. And I don't, the name of this thing is like Loto Labs or something. Are you familiar with this unit?
I think I've seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not trying to bash the company, but it's too much. There's no way to dial it to make it more sensitive. I mean, honestly, Vape Exhale is a much better unit for terpenes versus this thing. But the thing that you have, off camera, in regards to setting up this sort of think tank in regards to sensory science. And you know, from everything I've heard from Tom, Solventless Mind, and from Nick Ziegler, and from even Skunkman Sam, who has one of your units, it's just, it's the one that I'm jonesing for so hardcore, because I want to be able to dial in those profiles where you can kind of go through the terpene profile, accessing different bouquets of flavor by just using, you know, that sensitive, I guess, capabilities that your unit has. Maybe you can tell everyone a little bit about the unit, and maybe talk about what inspired to create it and what was behind creating it, and what you're kind of hoping that the unit helps, you know, unveil for the people of the cannabis community and industry, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. I guess it was this discovery that, you know, the size, shape, quantity, and composition of the heating elements that you're loading into the vial control the temperature ramp and the vapor texture. Once that was determined, it was just plug and play, try everything possible to dial it in to get those different terpene profiles. So you can go extremely low and slow, like from room temperature to 400 degrees over the course of 500 seconds. Or the unit's capable of, you know, hot dabs in 6 seconds. It depends what you're looking for. You know, you can use it as an analytical tool if you want by running the slower ramps. Or, you know, some people just like pulling huge clouds, and that's possible as well.
Why don't we go through the difference between, you know, convection, conduction, induction? Why don't you talk a little bit about the sort of popular vaporizers that are on the market and why the Indux is really quite something different?
I think it all comes down to temperature control. You know, I'm using induction to heat a heating element, but it's actually conduction that's heating the substances. So induction's a clean form of heating, and you have an extreme amount of control. So, you know, I just found that gives more control than, say, heating an insulator. You know, insulators aren't the greatest at heating. Yeah, they're pure, but you lose control. So, you know, I have titanium elements, I have steel elements, I have glass elements with a steel core. The titanium ones have the most control because you're directly heating the surface in a slow manner through eddy current. It's like a resistor. Then when you use the glow sticks, I call them, which are the steel elements encased in glass, that heats through eddy current and history, so it heats up a lot faster. But that energy in the core has to transfer through the glass shell to then heat and concentrate. It's a smooth presentation, but you just don't have quite the control you have when you're directly heating an element like a titanium. So,
hey, Kylie, question. So I've spoken to other researchers that are looking at just conduction and just how heat and thermodynamics are working. In your experience, are you finding most of the individuals I'm speaking to seem to believe that 316 is, like, in terms of a heating element, like a material for heating, it is kind of the best in terms of thermal, like the way that it heats up? Is that what you're finding? I mean, I'm not saying I know, but I'm just really curious to understand your opinion, I guess, because I guess these are really opinions at this stage of the game at some respect, right?
I've
but
put
you know,
316L, 304, 304L. Those are austenitic stainless steels, medical grade.
yeah.
They're non-magnetic. So they heat similar to the titanium, a little bit slower, but to be honest, you get better flavor off the grade 2 titanium.
Interesting. Yeah. So that would be my hunch was like, interesting, 316 or 304 sounds awesome, but hey, Mark, but at the same time, it seems like it's inefficient in terms of like the way it ramps through, like if you're looking at it from like a curve, it seems like it's just like, it's like a triangle wave or something. It just like peaks and then goes down, where it seems like other elements have a more of a curve to it, the way that it kind of ramps up and goes through the just through the different ranges of temperatures, because let's face it, all of these chemicals have a boiling point, right? And going through those temperature ranges really, I think, does help the experience and the profile and taste.
You're dial it in to go through whatever temperature range at the rate you want to.
Right.
It takes a little bit of experimentation to plug in the different heating, see exactly the effect you're going for, both flavor and cerebral effect is combined. The 316, that can be manipulated, size and shape of it, kind of tailor the temperature ramps. I played around with it some, but primarily I'm just working with the grade 2 titanium and some other materials. I'm working on a new material that is giving me really good initial results, but I'm not willing to say what it is right now.
Understood. So what do you think out of all the elements you have, like in terms of just experience, in terms of taste and delivery, are you feeling that there's a better, more efficient one than the other? Or are they just, like you're saying, very just different from one another?
Well, they're all different. I mean, you can load 13 1.6 millimeter titanium grade 2 rods into the vial at the same time and get one experience. You add one, it heats up a little bit faster. You take one away, it heats up a little bit slower. So you tailor the experience that way. So really, it's all determined by the heating element. It's pretty amazing.
Are we talking about Kylie, are we talking about the index?
Yes.
I love them. Sorry, you guys got me well and truly faded at MJ BizCon in Vegas a couple of years ago.
I remember very well. How you been?
Great.
Cool.
Working with fine folk like yourself and Marcus, and getting to talk all the fun stuff. So
yeah, I went to BizCon again this year. Had a little bit more luck than when I saw you out there, but hey, back then it was like no one knew about the machine, no one to try it, and it was a beautiful paperweight. Yeah, now people are starting to learn about it, what it's capable of, and the response is very good.
I pimp it hard. The way I describe it is like it's like being able to consume via GC, because the sequential elution of the compounds that I experienced was, like it was like, okay, well, there's limonene, there's ocimene, there's terpinolene, and then there's the THC, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, it stacks. The nice thing is you can control, since you have control over the ramp, you can control the compounds you're going to experience. Just work your way through their individual boiling points, and you cut it off when you get the effect you're looking for. So pretty unique enough. I'm excited about this.
It sounds incredible, dude. I'm just Jones, and I can't tell you. It's been like 2.5 years that I've been trying to get my hands on one of these units. And many years ago, when someone said, "Oh, what do you see as the perfect futuristic sort of medical device?" And I said, "Well, I mean, in a perfect world, it would be pretty cool if you had kind of a box, very much like what yours looks like." And then I pictured little glass vials that kind of fit inside the box with like all the novel cannabinoids that you want to have access to, all of the terpene profiles, and then hopefully, the deeper aromatic volatiles that are having an effect on it as well. And then just dialing in, through some type of an algorithm, exactly like, oh, what cultivar is the Ghost Train Haze? Oh, this is what Ghost Train Haze is. And then you just plug it into the machine, and the machine just takes out little bits of whatever it needs to create that profile. And I think that you're good halfway there with this unit. And I've only heard great things from amazing people.
That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear all this. And I'm so excited to be a part of this project and finally get this thing, used in an animal way. Yeah. I've done, but, I'm kind of limited in my capacity, but to have you guys on board, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so what Kylie's talking about is we'll give a little bit of a public mention. Just Nick and I have been kind of going back and forth on email. We brought in Kylie a while ago and some other sort of people. We're just trying to create a little bit of a think tank, like a little bit of a sensory science think tank with a group of people, inclusive, of course, and just trying to get it to the point where we can have, like Nick mentioned, having a shared lexicon would be very important, but also having a shared unit that people are able to go through these different, experiences, have these different effects from different plants and extracts. And it's just kind of an exciting rabbit hole that I've been looking to go down further and further, really since I met Nick and Jeremy, and I heard the term sensory science. It seems to be hand in hand with what, our discussions are here on Hash Church. So, that's going to happen in the future, sort of behind closed doors. But I figured, hey, why don't we, get on a Hash Church and have a little bit of a conversation about.
Lost Marcus.
Lost him for a sec.
That's Starlink. It's going to happen like that to him from time to time. He's going to stretch. So
Elon.
He'll be back. Yeah, Elon.
Files, or at least you mentioned. What's that?
Hey, Marcus, we lost you for a minute there, buddy.
Don't worry about it. You guys just keep going. I was just blowing smoke up your guys' ass.
Well, this.
At least you're honest.
Can I? Yeah, I thought I felt a tingle. Can I interject here a little bit?
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I was working on the last time I was on, or I'd sort of wrapped that up in my former life, was really trying to establish a unified sensory program for hops. And there's a tremendous amount of overlap, but really the experience that I had was that developing a system and a program for characterizing aromatics and eventually, of course, quantifying them, but or quantitating them if you're talking in GCLC land. But in this case was really getting everybody on the same page, and so using certain standards to define what the principal components were that were leading to the aromatics, and then what we would agree to call them. And so in creating a shared sensory lexicon, we're able to then assign numbers to the levels that we detect them at, and we can characterize people as well in terms of their sensitivities and blindnesses. And what that allowed us to do was to start to create a sort of a rating scale for each characteristic. So sometimes it would be citrus underscore lime, citrus underscore grapefruit, so forth like that, or tropical fruit underscore guava underscore mango, and all, and use all these things. And that allowed us to create much better pictures of the botanical in front of us. And so this was because we discovered that basically a lot of the compounds that are important for identifying a given chemovar of hop were not actually relevant to beer at all. They didn't make it a solution. And it's for cannabis, it's a little bit different. But the ability to characterize the components and then the sensory picture of what was there was massive. And with Dr. Russo's work on the entourage effect and the impact of the aromatic fractions on the therapeutic benefits of cannabis, I think that the time is ripe for really getting together and creating a industry standard lexicon. Not necessarily that we're going to dictate what people smell and taste and think about it, but that we at least have reference standards so that even though to me it might smell like say durian because I've been to Thailand and grew up in Southeast Asia, someone else might describe that as garlic, pineapple, and diesel in their own mind, but we agree to call it X, Y, or Z, and each region is going to have its own lexicon. For example, the Midwest might have something called Snicker salad, which I was introduced to recently and was very confusing, and it's not a range of flavors that I was familiar with at all. And then there's no vegetable or fruit in it, but it does smell kind of very distinctive. And so someone from the Midwest would say, "Oh yeah, that's X, Y, or Z." And someone from, say, Seattle would go, "What the hell are you talking about? I don't even know what that means." But to me, it smells like chocolate, caramel, whipped cream, and marshmallows, which are the principal ingredients. So the idea is that our lexicons are informed not only by our physical limitations, so either our sensitivities or blindnesses, like anosmias to certain smells, but also our cultural context. So someone who is in North Asia, Chinese, Korean, or in Southeast Asia, even though they're both, in Asia and they share a lot of things, they're going to have very different sensory lexicons based on their exposure to food, cuisine, and tradition. And if we can get everybody sort of talking on the same page with regards to the compounds, we can develop sensory thesauruses. So yes, in the Western US, we tend to use these descriptors, but they refer to these compounds, whereas in China, they use these descriptors, but they're referring to the same compounds. We can then create not only a lexicon or translation, but also the ability to actually quantitate what, based on people's noses. So you don't have to use GCs for all of this, but based on people's noses, we can get a pretty good idea of what that strain is going to offer. And the stretch goal beyond this is then to look at if we can apply this same methodology to the typing of human phenotypes and the interaction with the various chemovars, so that we can see that, okay, if you are from this genetic background, there's an 80% or 70% chance that you have all of these receptors and these genes, and your ECS works this way. If you're X weight, if you're male or female, so on and so forth. If you have any underlying conditions, we might be able to then start to be able to predict, in general, not necessarily specifically, what the experience most people would have with a given strain. And that's incredibly powerful, because right now it's kind of a roll of the dice.
So here's a question. So roll the dice and developing a phonetic and then ultimately a language that we can agree on, to your point, right? Some sort of system or series of systems that relates to one another. Now, I guess this may be directed towards Dr. Mark, but how do we really start to encompass and circle around the ideology of this is right for patient A in patient B, but not patient C, right? And that seems like nearly impossible to me, so because we have such the EC is so understudied and just we've such a long way to go. So circling around the ideology that we're going to say, hey, definitively A and B are going to be this and C is going to be that. I feel like we have so much research to go, and I just wonder what are the thoughts that we all collectively have, today that could get us closer to understanding how we could get towards talking in those ways, right? Not saying that we're going to definitively define something, but what are the steps you think that we could take to get closer to that?
Copy the beer industry.
It wasn't
right?
Just the beer industry. It was specific that we kind of upended it. The team that I built upended it because we saw this path forward, and we only got as far. We only got 60% of the way there, and that's kind of why I mentioned that to get to the quantitation and analysis of the effects, the therapeutic effects. That's that will take RCTs and clinical trials or clinical level trials in terms of quality, not necessarily massive size, to be able to determine it. And we would want to use diverse populations. Diverse populations, and so multiple countries, but also multiple genetic backgrounds. And it will take a while. But if we get everybody used to talking and used to thinking in shared terms, that is an achievable goal.
Personally, I think that, the fact that, just looking at fitness and looking at health and looking at what people consume for food, everyone wakes up at a different time, goes to bed at a different time, has a different schedule, metabolic. Some of them aren't getting enough sunlight. Some aren't, their circadian rhythm is off. All these things are wrong with people. And I think that for us to sit here and try to, and I love the idea, but I just think that the approach, we can't even get people to agree on a vaccine. We can't get people to agree on anything. So I don't understand how. I think this is such a huge task, because I could take all of you right now, us as the subject. And how do you apply this even to us? We're educated. We understand this. We have an understanding of these things. We can communicate at this level. We know what esters are and flavonoids, and we understand all these things. But I think it's so slow to the process of us educating the rest of the people, and then expecting them, like what Colin said, it's A, B, and C. How I really don't see it being possible, except in a way where it's a number of questions that allow people to let us know how they feel, to let us know after they've used something, how it made them feel, and sort of just let them develop that for themselves. Because even just like I said, in fitness, it's like, I've got people coming to me and being like, oh, this much protein and take this and take that. And half of that shit, I could drink a little bit of salt water before I work out and get a better pre-workout than most of the other shit. It's these little tiny things. People are selling something. And I would feel like, from an educated standpoint, collectively, it would almost appear like we were trying to fit people into a box that they don't fit into. Because, if the years and years and years and years of Etienne, is a perfect example of having a dispensary and always putting together these really well thought out, interactive experiences with people to get an understanding of what they think of cannabis. I feel like people vary too much. Cannabis varies too much, and you're intoxicating people at the same time. So it's almost like the fifth hour of a beer festival. It's a little foggy, right? Like it gets to be that way. So, there's always going to be different levels. I just feel like it's such a great conversation, but man, like Marcus always says, herding cats, like you're herding fucking countries of cats at this point. Like you're standing in Australia in the middle of the jungle, of the middle of the outback, and there's a zillion cats. Like I look at it as for us collectively, I think that it's a series of questions, and it's a series, like a comfortable, real, just, oh, cool. And the people that are intelligent enough to want to answer those questions because they want that understanding, they're going to go forward. But we really need to admit to ourselves that 90% of the people consuming cannabis are just trying to get high. They're just trying to forget about the dude that just cut them off and all these other things. And I think that I love the idea. I would love to accomplish this. I just think that it's going to look like Charlie standing at the board, with all that shit behind him and the crazy hair. I swear to God that I think that every one of us wants this. I just think that we will all be dead by the time it's done. I don't think so.
Does that make it not worth doing then?
Oh no, I love doing shit like this. Please don't get me wrong.
And yeah, and then that's kind of my point, is that this is what everybody said about the hop industry, is that we could never get anybody to agree. Mm-hmm. Muilgard's very simplistic definition of like seven different major attributes from the German perspective. I'm on the record of making fun of the Germans, but I mean, they started it, so let's be fair here. But we did it. It took a couple of years, but we also were vertically integrated as a company. Okay, so we controlled not only the farming, but also the processing and the distribution to clients. And so this would have to be an industry. We were trying to develop an industry standard, and we're not trying to box people in. We're trying to give people more information about what's in their cannabis. So when we say that, we'll be able to, and again, I say that the effects are like, that's way in the future. Okay, those results are way far down the line. But at least being able to show, that this one tastes like citrus grapefruit, but this one tastes like citrus lime, because these compounds are in this particular ratio. And so it will originally need to involve a lot of GC work, but it'll also need us to come together as group / industry. So people, dispensary owners, sensory scientists, growers, processors, and say, okay, we are not trying to put people we're not trying to force people into something they don't want to do, but we're going to try to create at least a standard that people can use if they so choose. And if it's done correctly, people will start to use that lexicon, that language to describe things, and it sort of grows organically from there. Because we are all we agree that even though we may think this might trigger a different concept, like I like to use the example of, someone once gave me notes like, oh, this reminds me of when I walked into my grandmother's house that she had sugar cones rather than waffle cones. Like, well, that's very specific to you and very meaningful and probably means a lot, but I have no idea what you're talking about. And so we want to try to limit people's like, what a chunker, sort of the bro science and the like, dude, this is like,
we still can't get past indica and sativa with people. Okay,
Yeah,
it's just your simplest of nomenclature. So I respect where you're coming from, and as somebody who's been doing this for 20 years, I agree exactly what Addison was stating, is that there's a small percentage of people who have fucks to give about it. The rest of the people, don't understand. But I'm one of those people who has that fucks to give. So I want to know, I do want to understand, because the biggest problem I get from patients every single day is, hi, I've got cancer. What's my cancer bud? Hi, I've got this. Where's my this bud? And it's like, sorry, it's completely subjective. You've got to go try everything to get an understanding. And I do like the new way that science is going, in the sense that we're going by terpene profiles now, as opposed to going across this indica sativa misinformation, which has so much of the public confused. They're coming in, I want something that doesn't lock me down on the couch. Well, that's great. What doesn't? And they look at me like, I don't know. Exactly. You don't know. I don't know. And since it's completely subjective, all we can go is by science to help us arrive there. So science, I think, is key because there's people right now that are actually using gene science of humans to try to match them with terpene profiles to supposedly help a human. And I think that's a new frontier that sounds like a lot of quackery, but it has some basis in real science. It has to be executed. It's going to take time. And already, I mean, when did McPartland and Rob Clark put out their book educating people on indica and sativa? And how many years later we're still talking about that? You see what I'm saying? So unfortunately, because we change laws and then educate people about things, we've got a steep uphill of education. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I want to see more of what you're doing. However, it's a long way till we arrive there, but I'm interested in the path and the journey, and I appreciate where you're coming from.
I have a quick question for everyone, because and I hate to interrupt. What is it that occurs when each of us gets sick of a strain or tired of a strain, and then has to go to other strains. You know, I mean, I've got the Legends kit in front of me, and there's I mean, the profiles are crazy on this, but even when it goes from my taste or my preference to go from rosin to melt, you know, because that's why I'm sort of like, would we ever pull this off? Because even in my own self, you know, it's a cloudy day and this, and there's all these things that apply. So I agree with you. I think it would be great to lay out or to begin the process of getting this out there and sort of saying, hey, lemon, lime, all these things. But it seems like such a giant task to tackle. What I'd like to understand more is how you guys actually tackled it on your side, and the you know, the fact that you know, when you're talking about hops and terpenes and beer, you know, of course it's you put that glass up to your face, you give it a smell. If the smell's okay, you're going to give it a sip. If it's in your mouth and it tastes all right, you're going to swallow it, right? It's that process. And I wonder, for you guys, like, what is it that how did you guys get to that point, you know, to get that understanding?
Right. So it was okay. I will describe sort of what I set up from the beginning, and you know, I'll try to go through the program overview in general of how I built it, and then we can go from there. And none of this is proprietary information. This is like well documented on Yakima Chief's website. So basically, when you assess a botanical, there's a couple of different things that matter. One is a true to type value, which is that this is consistent across this variety within you know, a couple standard deviations, so generally 2 off of the mean for its environment, because there's a strong G by E interaction, right? So you might see this if you're growing in cocoa, if for cannabis, if you're growing in cocoa, if you're going deep water culture, if you're going living soil, if you're going semi-organic, you know, so on and so forth, and you're using LEDs versus HIDs versus so on and so forth. Those are all factors that need to be considered. In outdoor crops, it's infinitely more complex. But once you have that true to type score, you have, you know, it's a +1, meaning it's 1 standard deviation over in X, Y, and Z characteristic. Well, we didn't have those characteristics, okay? So we didn't know what we were looking at. We were looking at a PCA to start with, which was total oil, and the like total alpha, basically. So basically it would be like looking at total amount of aromatic compounds possible and THC count, right? Which is that's about where the industry was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, okay, in cannabis, and it's getting better, okay. But from that point on, we're like, okay, well, hang on, there's a lot more going on here. So we used a standard metric for analyzing botanical, so using a GC, and then we did a sensory evaluation. And using the standard method, we noticed that these 2 different varieties were grown by the same grower, so that was actually nice control, were showing up as statistically indistinguishable using the 7-point metric for the oils that were being, you know, used. And it happened to be Mosaic and what is now called Sabro. And anybody in the beer industry can tell you that those 2 hops do not smell anything alike. So we noticed that, okay, there's something that our standard method is not picking up. So we started doing a 2-pronged approach, which is that we analyzed through sensory every single lot, and we decided the terms ahead of time. So that took about 6 months to decide what the lexicon was going to be. And so we did, you know, we would take the major categories like herbal, woody, earthy, fruity, dank, vegetal, onion, garlic / diesel flavors. Yeah, like all those things together. And then, nice. And I might have to do that in a second. And then you take all those and write. So you develop your flavor wheel, and you say, okay, in fruity you have the option of citrus, tropical, you know, palm fruit, red berry, you know, those things, and then you specify beyond that. So like in your berry, you can say blackberry, raspberry, blueberry, marionberry, so on and so forth. In your citrus, you've got lemon, lime, grapefruit, citron, yuzu, tangerine, all those things. And then you can assign a number, which is a 1 to 5 scale, basically, or 1 to 10 scale. And it can be any integer between. It can be like a 5.5 or something like that. Incidentally, we found we got better data with a smaller scale because people are lazy and they gravitate towards the mean. But what that allowed us to do was then say, okay, this is what we are talking. These are the terms we're using. This is how we're describing it. And then we put those samples through a GC. And we've got 2 different GC, or I had 2 different GCs, one with an olfactory port and one with a sulfur chemiluminescence detector, which allowed us to look at thiols and thioates. And so what we're able to do is, smell the sample as it's going through the GC, and correlate each compound as it elutes off to a descriptor. So you just speak into it and say, okay, this is a 1 through 5 citrus grapefruit. This is a peach. This is a pear. This is an apricot. And what that did was allow us to start creating, maps of the different strains or different
Hey,
chemobars.
Nick, can I ask a question?
Sure, please, of course.
Hey, thanks, man. Really cool topic here today. So GC stands for gas chromatograph. And so for those of you who don't know, you're taking a sample of material and injecting it into an injector port that's typically at 200 centigrade, or sometimes it's at 250. I think we keep ours at 200 in the lab. So certainly if you look at a terpene profile at room temperature and you look at a terpene profile at 200 degrees centigrade, you could very much see differences because chemistry happens, man. You can't just assume that you're going to inject this stuff in an oxygen atmosphere, heat these compounds up, which have multiple sites of unsaturation, and they're not going to undergo some type of chemical transformation by the time you get to the either olfactory or whatever detector you're using. So how do you reconcile a room temperature terpene profile with a terpene profile that's been heated to 200 degrees?
So this takes time, but first of all, you should get a GC that has the capability to do different ramps. And so you start at slightly below room temperature, because
I tried to keep this a low tech question.
Yeah, but so basically we use different temp ramps, just kind of like what Kylie was talking about earlier, which is that if you find the vaporization point and under different conditions, you can run under vacuum, you can run under pressure, and even stretch those chromatograms out a little bit more, and you are able to capture what is coming off at each given temperature. And for cannabis, it's almost kind of besides the point, because our room temperature is not how we consume these. We smoke them.
Well, it's sometimes how we extract them, right? And how, I guess back to another question I had, how are you differentiating monoterps and sesquiterps from other types of compounds, and how is that together, how's that data together, reading to you? Is that actually giving you some kind of wherewithal as to, okay, this variety is reacting this way at this temperature, but it's not reacting that way at, let's say, 180 versus 120?
Well, okay, so there's a couple of different layers here. So we're talking about like just basically I'm talking about getting it into the detector first. So let me go with that. Okay. So we have reference libraries for all identified compounds, and you get a NIST is a common one, but there's some other ones you can build your own if you identify them, and the attributes of those compounds at ambient pressure and temperature, and what their vaporization temperatures are, what their the VP is, the
TPM, things like that, right?
Well, no. Like so ppm is just a measurement of them, and so like what
Right.
what the threshold is, what the average threshold is. Like
Got
so,
it.
Chem Spider and PubChem and the Good Sense Company have a lot of good data on all these things, but their databases are not always complete. The NIST is a fantastic one, National Institute of something or other, but databases.
National
And
Institute of Standards and Technology.
thank you, sir. And you compare these to what are known, and you get a confidence interval. So basically, you say like, okay, this is geraniol versus geranyl acetate. Geranyl acetate, it's a 67% chance that it's going to be geranyl acetate, but it's a 95% chance that it's geraniol. It's likely geraniol. Okay, and there is some coelution sometimes where you get things that go together, and you also get compounds that interfere with each other when they're going through the ionization process. But by running multiple runs under slightly different parameters, you can change those those coelution characteristics. So, for example, if you are running triplicate, so you do your initial run with your base standard in triplicate, and then you compare those results, you say, okay, well, this peak is wider than it normally is against my reference standard. So there might be something else that's coming out with it. You increase the pressure and you change the temperature ramps, and you try to split those peaks up. And so you can see that, okay, actually it was, an example is farnesene. Trans-beta farnesene is the standard that's used, but there's actually a bunch of different isomers in there. And so you can look at one single peak is about, it's say on a normal chromatogram at, it comes out at, 27 minutes, and it looks, say, this wide, right? But when you actually look at all the ones that include all the other the isomers of farnesene, it's like a peak that's like this wide. And so there's something else going there. And farnesene doesn't have that many things that collude with it, so we're pretty comfortable just use it for the entire family of them, and they don't interact differently with our sensory program, or our organoleptic senses. Once you start doing that, you start getting a much better picture of when things come out. And the real strength of doing it this way is when you link it with sensory and you start smelling them as they're coming off together, because there are sometimes you'll get big peaks on your chromatogram and none of your panelists smell anything when that thing goes through, which means it's an aromatically inactive compound as far as humans and as far as your specific sample, your panel sample goes. However, there's other times when you don't see a peak, and you detect something that is really interesting. So this happened for us with a very specific aroma of peach and apricot, and we weren't seeing anything on one of our GCs. So that told us that something was eluding at that moment, but it was outside the resolution. So we changed the resolution, and lo and behold, we were able to identify two compounds that were associated with, for our sensory panel of about 40 people, peach and apricot. Okay, so it goes both ways. The sensory helps inform the quantitative science, and then the science helps create reference standards for sensory. So you have to do both together.
So here's the other third piece, I think, that at least I believe through the years that I've come to really respect more, is the psychology of things, and how, as a younger self, you are trained, literally like all of us, we are all trained to learn and know things such as taste, smell, things that we love, right? And they carry into today as an older self. And when someone says they like linalool forward things, it's like, oh, did you like grape juice as a kid? And most of the time it's yes, or I love Calio. I don't know why. Well, did you love citrus as a kid? And all these things kind of are starting to kind of makes more sense as I get older, and we interact with more and more patients and speak in these terms. And that's kind of the dumbed down version, the layman's term, if you will, of it all. But I think that's extremely informative to the bioassay. aspect of this, and that actually will directly inform the other data that you see, because you can now match real world with, with robotics and science, and that to me is a very difficult thing, as we're talking about today, right? It's the unicorn, right? So I don't know. It just feels to me like there's more. I really think it's amazing. Like, it's all these things together, I think, can help inform one another. It's the art and science in a way.
I'm just excited to where it will lead us. I mean, think about when we didn't know how to flower plants, and everyone was just growing leaf, and then someone was like, hey, you got to cut the light down, and you'll get some buds on there. And there's great things that we have yet to uncover. And I think the rabbit hole that Nick is mentioning, it's not supposed to be the be all end all, but it's going to create some incredible side missions in the game of cannabis.
Yeah, the dialogue, right?
Like, and while I guess I want to play a little bit of the devil's advocate. While I really appreciate all of the standards and everything that, sort of puts it into common language, it also puts it into common language. And that is the same as when you standardize anything. So say when the Phillips screwdriver was standardized, it took away 1,000 different instruments and different tools that other people were using all around the world. So what this does is it gives us a common language, but it also takes away individualistic language. So me as a practitioner, when I'm talking to people, I want them to use their language of whatever they want, because that tells me more about their constitution. Now, if they're using language that is already, in some kind of a format, then they're using someone else's language. They're using someone else's tool. And what concerns me is in standardizing cannabis and standardizing botanicals is that we're taking away a lot of cultural values. We're taking away, the language that people have with this very sacred plant that they've been long-term cultivating. So what worries me about science is a bunch of English-speaking white people creating a language for people all over the world that have a very intuitive, very sacred relationship with this plant. And that sacred relationship is also how I personally, as a health practitioner, treat people. So if they're telling me, this reminds me of grandma's closet because of a cedar, the cedar closet or something like that. Or mothballs. Yes, that may not be on, this particular standard, but that tells me more about that person. It tells me more about the relationship that they might be having, A, with the medicine, and also B, with whatever healing tones that they're going through or energy at that particular time. So yeah, I really can relish in the fact that we have a Phillips screwdriver and I can carry it all over the world. But yet again, I'm not seeing all of the tools that are possible, historically. And so it worries me of this sort of homogenization that we are creating within the cannabis industry, again, creating hoops that we can't jump through further on. Because this is a fractal medicine. Every single person has a different relationship with it. And it fractals in different heat, in different areas, in different zones.
Well, you said it. Every single person has their own, and this just happens to be ours. And so you have to accept it just like you want to accept yours. They're both just as valid.
And well, here's another, I'm worried that people I'm worried that you've misinterpreted kind of what the goal is. The goal is not to put people into boxes. The goal is to give us terms so that we can run it against, physical science and chemistry to try to characterize lots of the plant. Okay, we're not telling people what they're going to feel or how they're going to react to it. And the idea of a shared lexicon is not to limit but to in fact give greater resolution. And the lexicon is not static. It would be continuously evolving and increasing. So, and it does, as you pointed out, each patient has a different historical relationship to these the sensations that arise from these compounds. And if leveraged judiciously, you can create a lexicon that encompasses 95% of those things. You can use it for, like, as you said, in different cultures, in different regions, for different genetics that are related to different people's sensitivities to smell. And it doesn't have to be limiting, and it doesn't have to be static. It can continuously evolve and grow. And I presented a very simplified version, but my initial draft of the program that I designed had a drop-down menu of at least like 20 different iterations of aromas for each subcategory. It was ridiculous. It was too bulky to use. But in terms of simplifying it, and then we also allowed people to put down their own notes in everything. Okay, and say this, like you mentioned mothballs and cedar, right? Well, mothballs are camphor, cedar is cedarine, and a couple of other different compounds, and alpha pinene and beta pinene. So
mothballs are naphthalene.
Yeah.
Not even a terpene at all. It's a fused fused aromatic compound. If you smell camphor and you smell naphthalene, you'll see the difference between the two.
Great, thank you. It's weird because I've got camphor mothballs as well, which is maybe because I was in the UK.
I think they tried to make like a more natural version of the mothballs, but the mothballs in my grandmother's closet were the old school.
Yeah, the super chemi ones. But the thing is also.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say naphthalene is a heavy hydrocarbon that I think they found was toxic, so they tried to phase that out. But years ago, that's what they used.
And naphthalene also comes from, you can get it from petrochemicals, but you can also get it from pine sap, from certain pines.
Yeah, absolutely.
And creosote bushes. So just a quick backup, though, is that one thing that I also want to talk about is that we're not discussing terpenes, because the terps are only a fraction of what is aromatically active in cannabis. So thiols.
Amen. Man, you see all these people talk about terpenes, and where I get kind of confused on this is, as a chemist, I think of terpenes as oligomers of isoprene, completely hydrocarbon. And as soon as you have an alcohol, or as soon as you have an oxygen or a sulfur in there, it's no longer a terpene, it's a terpenoid. It used to be a terpene, but now these things are doing chemistry and they're making terpenoids. And terpenoids is a much wider class of molecules. So linalool, that's a terpenoid, right? Because it's a terpene alcohol. So again, this speaks, Nick, to the broken lexicon in cannabis, right? Which is that, whether it's sativa, indica, or, people are constantly confusing all kinds of terms when it comes to
But it also shows the flip side, Mark, of the shared lexicon that people have learned about terpenes in the last several years that they're all now using. And I think that that's empowering sometimes. So it's like, I love the idea that science is over here doing this, and you've got the more spiritual aspect over here. And the beautiful thing about cannabis is exactly what Kelly said. It's a fractal, which means everything has its place. Regardless of how you're going about doing it, this plant is somehow getting us to discover new things about it. And to me, I love very much the sort of, conscious, spiritual, almost psychedelic aspect of understanding the moon and the regenerative farming and, being synergistic with Mother Earth. But I also love the deep chemistry of it and how that sort of interacts, and the feelings that I'm having. I want to understand all of these things, so I really kind of have a foot in both places.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, Mark. I think, Marcus, it's like, look, this is only healthy because there's so many times when I wish I could have these broader conversations. And Mark said it beautifully. Terpenoids is a great term, and I just say them aromatic chemicals. I just even go
Yeah, but
there.
the problem there, Colin, the problem there to a chemist like myself,
Yeah,
when I hear aromatic, yeah, I guess in a general sense, that's
yeah,
aroma containing compounds or compounds that have an aroma, right?
yep,
But aromatic to a chemist, to an organic chemist, means a benzene ring
that's
or a
right.
tryptamine ring
It's
or
benzene. I guess you're
something
right.
that's
Yeah,
got 4n+2 pi electrons is an aromatic species. Some of those things are like noxious. They don't smell good at all. Some of them don't have a smell at all.
true.
So but there, again, aroma containing molecules, and that's why I don't mind using the slang terps, because terps to me encompasses terpenes, sesquiterpenes, diterpenes,
Yeah,
but it also encompasses the wider class of molecules, which is terpenoids.
right.
And it's the terpenoids, I think, that really create a huge amount of molecular diversity in the sense of fragrances that we're able to sense. The smell of sense, or I'm sorry, the sense of smell rather,
Yeah.
is the most primitive sense that we have. I think it was the first, before vision, before sight, before touch. Smell was a very, very important evolutionary trait to have for survival.
Yeah, no doubt. And one other thing I wanted to bring up is environment for these sedent varietals. They're going to express different traits from the chemotype itself every single time you change its feeding cycle, its BPD, PPFD, its root zone temperatures. I mean, there's so many things that are contributing, I think, to, and even like water deprivation. Like, if there's so many things, I think, that allow these things to go in different directions during the cultivation aspect of things that I think we've yet to really truly understand in terms of controlling.
So this speaks to the point, Colin, that I was mentioning earlier to Nick. Like, when you walk through the grow, you're not heating those terpene profiles up to 200 degrees centigrade. Right. You're walking through the grow and basically getting a room temperature, inhalation of, and when you pinch the bud, you're not sending it through a injection port at 200 degrees. So I think just my point to Nick before was, while we conveniently use GC and we can change the parameters around what temperatures these things are heated up, they're still being heated. And when you stare cross-eyed at these molecules, they do chemistry. So certainly when you inject something into an injection port, no matter how hot it is going to change the chemistry somewhat. But I think, Nick, just to go back to that point for a second, is that let's look at terpinolene for example. Terpinolene is a great example because an isomer of terpinolene is limonene, right? And I think in terpinolene, can't there be like 4 different isomers, because there's 2 double bonds that could walk around in that ring structure itself. So I think whether you're looking at gamma terpinolene or whether you're looking at alpha terpinolene or whether you're looking at limonene, these things are going to have very, very different organoleptic properties.
Not always. You'd be surprised. And it depends very much on the compound. That's kind of the point, is that as I was mentioning about farnesene earlier as an example, because I know that one, and like those all present pretty much the same way in terms of the aroma bucket. And it's not to say that each individually would not present differently, but when they all come out together and they bind to the same receptors, the whole moiety is giving you that experience. And it may be the case with, say, terpinolene and its various isomers, that they pretty much will elute together. And I use elute together, meaning they're going to flash off together, and we're going to smell them all at the same time rather than independently. And so I want to caution that, with sensory and organoleptic approaches, reductionism is a mistake. So when you try to just do a simple PCA or principal component analysis of something, you're just like, I think what Kelly, with other things that are there. And one of what my program, well, my approach to this is like, let's actually get a whole bunch more buckets, because we don't just want to use PCA because it really dulls the colors and narrows the ability to talk about things. So we want to look at really as much specificity as we can reasonably get, and we can try to get it to the different use conditions. So vaporization, straight up smoking, edibles. I know that's and we're talking about the gut microbiome. And the gut ECS. That's an entirely different thing. But you don't want to just over reduce it down to single compounds, like one compound, one effect. That's, I mean, the FDA and the whole drug classification has proven that doesn't work, right? And you just kind of need to put in the work to get as much information as you can, and then run analyses on these databases against, sensory, against, GC chemistry and LC chemistry, and then, whatever other metrics you want to use. So it takes time, it takes work, it takes buy-in, but the value we get from that does not just only allow us to discuss and perhaps better characterize individual lots of cannabis, but also allows growers to have information as to what their particular treatment of a given strain is doing to the terpene and to the actual chemovar expression. And it's an incredibly powerful tool, the value of which is almost impossible to quantify until you start playing with it. And I think there's a lot of, in growing, oh my God, there's so much bro science about 48 hours of light deprivation to increase the THC, and, using the different light levels. And then there's the whole flushing argument, it's all anecdotal, and there is absolute value in anecdotal experience. But until you begin to really rigorously try to understand why these things are happening, there's a lot of noise and the signal gets lost. And so what I'm trying to do is, what I'm proposing is basically, let's work on a system where we try to collect as much information as we can and assemble it into a database that will allow us to start statistically answering some of these questions. And it's, it'll be a while, but it doesn't matter. Like, this isn't necessarily, it doesn't matter if it takes forever, because we're going to always constantly be learning more things. And we're also constantly going to be refining our understanding of what compounds in synergy or antagonism do to our experience. And so that's kind of the long and the short of it. Like, this is a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint.
Yeah. Mark, I got a question. Do you think it would make more sense to refer to the terpenes themselves as VOCs?
Well, they're definitely volatile, but so VOC is an acronym for volatile organic compound. So they certainly fall into that category. If it's, again, like I've run into this a few times where people want to call caryophyllene, which is a sesquiterpene, they want to call it a cannabinoid because it binds to CB2. It's like, wait a second, you don't classify compounds by what receptors they bind to. You classify them by what the structure of the compound is.
Yeah.
So
ion weight.
I'd always like to think that cannabinoids are cannabinoids and terpenoids are terpenoids. I think that it's interesting, Addison, because if you looked at like terpene profiles, like when you guys first started way back when, and now, you're getting a pretty broad swath of terpene, sesquiterpenes, terpenoids, the most common ones in cannabis. And maybe this is, again, more of a question for Nick. it still seems like there's an unknown fraction of compounds in the volatile organic compound collection that we still can't quite put our finger on, because if the folks at True Terpenes try to create the sour diesel terpene profile so they can put it in a jar and sell it, it all to me anyway, my sense tells me that those things all basically taste the same, and they're kind of missing the point that they're only looking at maybe a handful of the terpenes and terpenoids that are in there. But what really makes a big impact are all those compounds that are in there at such a low level that we can't really discern them by GC. But our olfactory spectroscopy up here can.
So this is an interesting thing that you mentioned here. So the GC settings are kind of what determine that. So like there's no such thing as bad weather. There is only inadequate clothing and preparation. It's to quote Mr. Swanson, the same thing is that there's nothing it's not that we can't detect them, it's that we don't know we should be looking for those. And that's what you do. You have to work on changing the resolution of your scan, basically. And as an example, so I put in the chat, we're talking about terpenes, terpenoids, monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes. Nobody's mentioned aliphatic alcohols, diols, dioates, esters, or the acids yet. Okay.
Yeah.
And for example, there was this paper that came out like 2 weeks ago. I'm surprised it even got published because they said, we discovered what the skunky aroma was in cannabis for the first time. I'm like, no, we've known that in beer for decades. We discovered the garlic and onion characteristics, and the diesel characteristics. No, we know what compounds cause those and what classes of compounds. And so you might have identified a particular isomer of one or something like that, but this is information that's already known. And so when we talk about terpenes, like I want people to move away from just using terpenes. But Marcus's point that people are getting more excited about using the terms that they're learning because they want to dive deeper and they want to be able to better understand the medicine or the compounds or the material that they're using. And this conversation is really just to get people started on, let's throw that up. Like, let's blow this up quite a bit. Let's zoom in and let's really blow this up. And let's create a really complex system that we can at least use to derive information from. So from past life, that comparison between Mosaic and Sabro that I said earlier, well, we narrowed it down to a compound that was at 0.0001 parts per trillion. Okay. So we can get pretty damn specific in terms of the volume that's in there. And to me, that's super exciting. Like, it's ridiculous. Like that resolution, like we kind of went on a like totally divergent bug hunt when we were
like a picogram. Is that what that is? A picogram?
I think it might even be smaller. So pico trillion.
So crazy.
So it's basically like, what is it? 1 part per quadrillion.
Yeah.
0.1 parts per quadrillion.
Oh,
so yeah.
That's like taking a lint brush to a New York City sidewalk. You're going to find everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
No, I was thinking earlier too, just about, my favorite part of all of it is esters. And I love, like, the banana ester is my favorite because it's so complex in a sense. And
it's the amyl acetate.
Isoamyl acetate.
Yep. So but what I love, and then look at CBD. When you bind whatever the cherry flavor to CBD that binds to that cannabinoid, there's things in there. What I always tell people is when you smell cannabis, you're smelling a lot of other things beside, right? We know there's chlorophyll in there. We know there's plant matter there. There's other things that they're catching the scent of. That's why when I look at the guys at True Terpenes, I feel like they aren't doing it correctly because they're not adding some of those other things. But again, it's not going to be a beautiful, clear jar of terpenes at that point. So it's really, it always gets to me where, when I look at these things and I see the conversation, it's the education level of the consumer. And like Marcus said, they've gotten much better. I remember when you use the term terps or terpenes, people had no idea what the fuck that was. I would drive, my car's license plate says terp rig. And I would drive my car around and no one knew what the fuck it was. And now I'm in LA. Almost every time I'm on the highway, there's kids behind me like fucking videoing my car because it's so popular now in the understanding that people know that. I love that. I think that that's the door's open. We cracked it a little bit. And now they're like, oh shit. I mean, a lot of people don't know that Maryland's college football team is the Terps, the Terrapins. So they make a ton. I have t-shirts that just say Terps on them and all this shit from that. I love how it's becoming more of the conversation, but I think the idea that you're presenting, Nick, is genius because it will allow people at least something to measure from, at least something to dig into and compare, because that's what we're doing all the time. We may agree here, but then turn around and be in another situation and we're just comparing our own understanding. So I think it's a great idea. I'm excited to see really where it goes because I love your point about the drop-down menu. And when you get into it, it could be a million different things that kind of fall into it. So no, I think that when it comes to analyzing things and looking at things and getting a better understanding of them, it's a long process. And I feel like in order to get there, we all need to smoke more hash. That's just what it comes down to.
And grow more weed. Yeah. And
yeah,
you know, there is a lot of studies done with enzymatic biotransformation for, you know, specifically targeting terpene and terpenoids. So I would highly recommend it. I'll send you some white papers I have that I've been digging into, and I think it'll be perhaps helpful for the headspace that you're occupying.
I think the promise that was never really delivered on is the notion that we can categorize a variety or a cultivar by just looking at the terpene profile by GC and then reassembling that terpene profile, adding that to unflavored distillate, and basically coming up with a good tasting concentrate. And I don't know, Addison, you know, we've been following this thing for years, and I still don't think that anyone has got that down. It always seems to me like there's two aspects, not just the terpene profile, but the relative concentration of terpenes, you know, like
so sensitive.
Yeah. Well, years ago when Tony was talking about, you know, adding terpenes to his dab, he was like putting squirts of it in a time. It's like, holy shit.
I can still feel it on my throat.
When you add that much, it becomes, caustic on your throat. It's just
and it gets to the full circle of why Kylie's here today. And, you know, because a part of this conversation and creating a shared lexicon, it's also like, well, you can't be smoking out.
Yep. I was about to say, when you consume hash or a vape, and depending on what temperature you're using, and also if you consume in the flower form, you're going to have a totally different experience. Like in the flower form, you're going to be getting a lot of other compounds, for good or for ill, that are, you know, present. Like you get the ash and the smoke and so on and so forth. And it's sorry, Marcus, we lost you just at the as you're getting into the
I'm just gonna
excitement. But yeah, I mean that's a huge thing. And so I call that form or the format matters hugely. So I know this is Hash Church, so maybe flower is verboten, but it's you know, there's some strains that I prefer to consume in flower form, just because I enjoy the experience I get from it, and others that I, you know, really don't want to do that, like, you know, Gorilla Glue and 9 Pound Hammer and all those guys. They are not lightly named. Like for me, I'm very sensitive to THC, and it just knocks me out. Whereas like the one I just showed earlier with a bunch of CBG and CBD and CBJesus, it's also got 3% CBC and 0.4% CBT, which is super interesting to me. I've been chasing these cannabinoids for a while, and this is someone I'm talking to about some of their development. But you know, I had another one that was a 1.5 CBC and a bunch of other stuff, and mostly varins, and it made me feel like I was consuming it, you know, back in high school. I was giggly. I was energetic. I was super happy about it. And I thought it was a CBC. So I went out and got another one that had the highest level CBC, but it makes me feel completely different. So I suspect that one is probably to do with the terpene profile. And I'm just psyched as hell because, well, first of all, I love that feeling. Hi, buddy. But the sort of, I'm kind of gone off on a tangent here. Wonder why. But the experience was just amazing. And so trying to get that characterized, at least in terms of at least personally for me. And let me be completely honest. I'm a little bit selfish in pursuing this because I want to know how this stuff works for me. I want to know what I feel like. Kai, what are you doing? Sorry, he's wanting pets. Just for ourselves, I think this is say it again. This is a really great opportunity for the geeks to geek out on what we're really interested in, and in my experience, the geekery expands.
1 second. Are you saying your dog wanted petting? I think that's a unique situation in science. Is anybody aware of a dog wanting pets?
No, I've never heard of that before. But yeah,
gotta run that through the GC.
His GC is pretty awesome.
We need a canine lexicon.
It has a strange affinity for cat dung, though.
Mine too. I had the kitty litter robot. My cat, my dog. It's not a good scene. I won't go deeper.
I have a dog that likes to eat the other dog's stuff, and I've done everything. Joy. And there's just, and some days she doesn't get any kisses, so it's just how it is.
Free snacks out the oven.
Yeah, it's a very taboo thing to witness. I'll tell you right now.
Beaver terps.
Yeah. What do you mean, raspberry?
Yeah, or vanilla.
Yeah, the anal gland of a water rodent.
One thing I wanted to bring up was toxicology, and I believe at least that's another subject that is highly underlooked in terms of how we're stacking, things through extraction and taking these individual parent parts and then creating new formulations with them as ingredients. We're entering a new world that, admittedly, I don't think we really truly understand fully yet. And I think I just believe should be along for the ride. If we're going to develop, a language, it should be baked into it. So we all understand that the risk behind a lot of this is actually there. I mean, we love making these amazing products, but through that act, I just believe that we've also made some pretty toxic things. Pull a gun, pretty toxic. There's certain things that we're gonna start to have answers for, I think.
Yeah, I think it is a drug. There's going to be risks and toxic, the toxicity of that drug. But I feel like the one great thing about cannabis is that it seems to be not very toxic at all. Unless you have this hypermesis or these other issues with consumption. That's what's so great about cannabis. I mean, Etienne, we all get these questions all the time. I got a question the other day from a guy who obviously has no understanding of, a very, very quick early understanding. I think he did some research on leukemia and saw that there are cell types for leukemia, which specific cannabinoids and terpene profiles work really well for. And then that sort of led him into this direction of being like, well, hey, my grandmother's not eating, so I'm trying to get her to eat. And I explained to him, I said, just give her a very low dose of THC, because we all know when we were kids and we smoked that shitty brown weed, we got the munchies super hard because the dose of THC was so low. And then we also know too, if you take if you put to face a 0.5 gram dab, you're probably not going to be eating anything anytime soon after that. So I explained to him, hey, look, give her a really low dose of THC. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, have her take one puff off of a joint, see what grandma's made of, check her out, see what she can do. And he's like, well, I mean, we don't want her to feel the effects of the THC. And I'm like, well, listen, you're not going to get the hungry feeling without the psychoactive feeling. they come together. I said, but ask your grandmother this: what medications is she taking right now, and what are the side effects of that medication? So you kind of educate them to a point where they start to understand more. Like, look, man, you're gonna fucking break, you're gonna break some eggs if you're making omelets, grandma. Like, that's how it works. And he came back to me this morning. He messaged me and he said, man, he said, she got to the point where she, wasn't eating, and my mother came to me, and we had to make something happen. And I told him about our conversation. So I was smoking a joint, and she came up and took one puff off the joint. And lo and behold, she takes one puff off the joint. Her first response is, I don't feel anything, which is good. And then maybe 25 minutes later, he said she was sitting down eating soup, which she hadn't had the urge to do before. So it really, to me, it's like, how do you introduce them? How do you walk them in real slightly and give them that understanding? And that's what this is about. It's about really creating a measure so that people can say, hey, because look what we've already all done collectively. We've all collectively helped deliver some of this stuff that they're already looking at. Some of these, when Steep Hill did its terpene testing, we were all sitting there and it was like, oh, we're going to be able to identify all these fucking things. And it's like, no, you just open Pandora's box and you put your foot in your mouth at the same time, because nature, God is nature in so many ways. And I feel like nature is cannabis. And my biggest beef with Steep Hill is that you are not the science of, you are not they try to claim to be this, like, what is it, like the science of cannabis or something. And it's like, no, nature is that. Nature's giving this to you. You're just analyzing and looking at it. You're just, you're business people looking at these things. So I think, go ahead.
I love that you said that, Addison, because I think that it's really important for us to remember too, that while we're studying terpenes and all of the different fractals off of what terpenes are and what they can be even combined with and be created from, the cannabis plant is creating terpenes in a live state. It's creating terpenes through this incredible dynamic microbiology body, which is the microbiome, which is the endophytic system of the plant. So, talk about nature and talk about trying to explain something that is so dynamically happening. It's so different. What soil are you giving it? What kind of lights do you have? All of these things. And again, I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to go back to this awesome example in science is that us, as well as plants, our DNA, we're 99.9% identical, but our microbiome, we're 99.9% totally different. And that's no different with the plant. So here we are trying to explain and express, while I do think that this kind of common language could be really helpful, in making medicines. I believe that a lot of the energy and effort and unfolding, if you will, of the plant really needs to come from that endophytic system and microbiology and how we are creating the terpenes from the very beginning, not necessarily how we're separating them out and how we're going to, isolate them and create new scents, but how are we going to work with the plant in its natural state to create these vast amounts of terpenes, and what are we feeding the soil that creates these terpenes? That's what is so incredibly interesting to me in the plant. So
that's where all of this intersects with metabolomics and proteomics. So we can actually take samples throughout the life cycle of a plant and look at what genes are being turned off and on, and what metabolic pathways are engaged, and that's super exciting for me. And that's obviously, you need to get the sort of the first data down and start looking at it. But it's some amazing science that has become accessible in the last couple of years to be able to look into the plant cells and see what the reaction of the plant is to a given environment, in terms of its tertiary metabolites and secondary metabolites, what it's producing, and look at what the chemical impact in the living organism of a environmental change or stressor is. That will take even more work, but as I said, this is if we get this going, it's certainly job security, because it's a very long experiment. But it's super, super important. And it actually, and this is one of the things that I kind of want to point out, is that, this type of work has implications beyond just cannabis. Like, this can be, you talked about toxicology, but look in terms of therapeutic benefits. The sense of smell is so important in memories that I suspect that there's probably a way to use scents in combination with a bunch of other therapy to help people overcome PTSD. They associate this smell with this particular traumatic event. Well, let's start introducing some other smells to try to change the signal noise ratio on their disorder.
Even dementia. If you look at dementia, that it's, I've had that idea as well. I hate to interrupt, but it makes me think that too, because what I've noticed just in some of the research I've been just in videos I'm watching and things that I'm looking at of these Alzheimer's patients, they're using music to reintroduce them to different things. And instantly I was like, well, fuck, that'd be great if you also had them, if you would speak to them or talk to the family members that they had and bring, maybe they were a gardener and they love to grow lavender. And now you introduce lavender with the music and see what that stimulates. I think it's opening up a lot of different doors. I've got to jump off. I'll just leave you guys with one last thing. When we were preparing for Legends, Marcus had explained to us that we wanted to make sure that we had to have fruits and stuff at the event. So we were dealing with a company called Sassoon Fruits, which sent us a box of fruit to check out, just to kind of figure out what we wanted to get. And they sent us these pineapple guavas, which are these little green pineapple guavas. They're tiny little things. And there were also other guavas, and there's a bunch of great stuff in there.
The feijoas?
What's that?
Are they feijoas?
I'm not sure what they are, but the terpene profile on those things, if there's ever a strain of cannabis like that, it's going to take over the fucking world. It is so crazy. And I want to analyze this and just see what they are, because when you taste it, you're getting, it's touching on some of the things that we've experienced that we understand. But then there's a whole other, however they're binding, however they're together, it's such a wide range of terpenes flavor that's in it that you can taste. So I've got to jump off. I'll leave you guys with that, because those pineapple guavas, you got to find them. You have to try them, and then let me know what you think, because it was so amazing. But we're going to go get a Christmas tree so we could have some terpenes in the house. But I want to thank everybody. Thanks for having me, Marcus. And I love all you guys. I hope you have a great Sunday.
You.
So Addison, hang on before you sign off. You can grow those. You said you live near LA?
Oh yeah. LA.
You can grow those. You can buy them. I'll send you a link right now. But they are they're super easy to grow, and they are feijoas. I just found them online.
The first one out there to extract them.
If they weren't so expensive, I would totally do it. So yeah, there's the link right there, and it says monrovia.com pineapple guava. The plant is the Latin name, and the common name in Brazil is called a feijoa or feijão. They grow really well, pretty much from any zone above 7B. So you guys are perfect for it. But yeah, pineapple guava is a great way to describe the character. So
I'm going to hit up Reggie, and I'm going to be like, Reggie, we need to isolate these, and then let's see if we can put these things in somewhere.
It's what you described as that sort of that guava and that pineapple character. Those are a ton of crazy things together. And what's interesting about pineapple is that if you just change the OH group on its location, it tastes like strawberry. And that's how they were able to breed something called the pine berry, which is a strawberry that tastes like pineapple, and it's white. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, so totally growable. And I love feijoas. They're one of my favorite fruits. They're just hard to find. So
why does it not surprise me that you even know what the fuck he was talking about? And I don't know. I'm just laughing. But let's talk about Legends next Sunday, Addison.
I'll definitely love to jump in. I also wanted to say that yesterday we successfully were able to grab the domains for Legends. So me and Marcus have been discussing stuff, and it looks like we'll be moving forward with some of that stuff. So soon there'll be a website. Soon the t-shirts and the past lanyard t-shirts will be available, and all these really cool things. So thank you, Marcus. I can't thank you enough for believing in us and giving us the opportunity to put Legends on. And we hope we did you proud. So Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. You absolutely did it proud. And we're going to talk about it hopefully next week because lots of people are asking questions. So love to have a little hour talk about legends next week.
I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, guys.
Peace out, Addison.
See you later.
But also going on what Addison was saying, I would also then add on psilocybin therapy on there because of how psilocybins are able to rebridge neurons. I think that's something that isn't discussed enough as well, especially for people who are older or have suffered traumas. As you were talking, Nick, earlier about that, that's one of the things we found. I work with veterans at a national and international level, and cannabis is an amazing palliative. But when you want to deal with that healer, that deeper healing, psychedelics come into play, and I appreciate the new forefront that they're experimenting with in psilocybin, because I think a combination of cannabis and psilocybin are going to be natural beneficials. And we're seeing that already in the veterans community from people already self-healing that way. So we're just trying to come up with standard operational procedures so people can have a safe an efficacious experience, as opposed to, they get the experience they want as opposed to the experience they're given. You know what I'm saying? Because those are key. Settings are, as you know, are key to any type of acceptance or unacceptance. If I go take mushrooms and go to a amusement park, I'm going to have a different experience than if I'm in my home where I have things that I can relate to that ground me, etc. It allows for that self-healing to take place. So it's a total holistic understanding that I think is lost on a lot, especially younger people, when they're out there experimenting. They take these and then go out into the world, as opposed to trying to go as best as we can inward to the situation, which is a whole other level of education that needs to take place. But just that correlation between people with Alzheimer's and those that are having memory issues, and especially as you get into that dementia range, I look forward to seeing and especially if there's some budding researchers out there, we look forward to seeing your studies once you become doctors on what actually takes place in these relationships, because we definitely need to have a better understanding. Because we know anecdotally it's happening, but we need the science, like with cannabis, to come around and actually, bring that to the case. But I love what you're doing, Nick, and keep at it.
Well, it's trying to build support for it all, because I think it's got a lot of potential. In terms of what you're just mentioning about psilocybin, and I would also venture ketamine therapy. The Dr. Sunil Agarwal is now suing the DEA to make psilocybin because legal for medical treatments, because it's demonstrated efficacy, and they can't, you can't prevent people getting access to something that's going to help them. And the therapy, like I have actually undergone some of this therapy, and it's tremendously impactful. Not just for trauma and depression and stuff like that, but also for something like migraines. Psilocybin is a fantastic anti-migraine medication, and it's surprising, but sorry.
No, it is. It's a whole other frontier. But I mean, we're still having problems with cannabis. This week, group I work with at the UN level, we had to set out a letter, and we were able to get over 100 groups to call for greater transparency at the INCB with its cannabis initiative, because they're being behind closed doors. So we put the pressure and got a response this week from the UN Secretary General, where they want to hear from us, but they will not mediate the discussion. So we have to take a whole bunch of information. We've got things coming up this week in Vienna, and then in mid-March we'll be there as well, trying to push back against this, because we're just celebrating 1 year. Just 1 year, people. As of December 2nd, the group that I work with changed international law and got cannabis pulled out of Schedule 4, so that medical marijuana is legal for the first year since 1961. So we're currently working on getting cannabis pulled for recreational and adult use as well. but at the same time, we're still treading these waters. So we've got a long way to go international wise, but treaty wise. But if we get this research that you're doing, Nick, and get it going, hopefully by the time we'll hopefully all meet on a path sometime in the future where we'll find the utopia we're searching for, education and freedom wise. So steps by step.
We're on that path right now.
You're on it. We're on that yellow brick road.
There's a lot of work being done in Canada with the Canadian Psychedelic Association, and a lot of the psychedelic, therapy that's happened in Canada, it has crossed over to the U.S. And the term psychedelic was coined by a Canadian doctor. I forget his name right off the top of my head, but I think it was in 1955 back in Saskatchewan. They were doing LSD trials and doing, some pretty incredible therapies with addictions, back in the 50s. And it was it was LSD going into the public that, that you always hear about it changing the paradigm and stuff. And now we feel like we're coming back towards therapy. But the issue that we will need to address as we open up the therapies is to not, as it gets legalized, is to not have it be over-regulated like it is with cannabis. So, it's obvious that plant medicine is therapy that helps us through things because we've been guided through plant medicine with indigenous cultures throughout the world. And in some cases, people continue to go back to these indigenous tribes and get therapy. But plant medicine therapies in general are on the rise. And when it comes to psychedelics, there's literally thousands of compounds out there that help, unlock the mind. And when it comes to cognitive degradation, finding ways to get through the blood-brain barrier, to be able to nourish the brain are the medicines that we need to focus on. And that's where, whole soil, whole plant food, whole medicine comes in, because it's often, Al Hubbard, thank you. It's often those medicines that truly know how to break through the blood-brain barrier, and things like raw cacao and algae together has been proven to improve cognitive degradation. And also medicinal mushrooms. There's so many good medicinal mushroom studies out there, often in Korean, Russian, or Chinese or Japanese. So we don't often get those teachings in this Western culture, but it's these new awakenings that we're going through right now that will help unlock people. And we believe in this, medical sovereignty and this choice of what medicines that you deserve to have to treat your PTSD. And now PTSD comes in lots of forms because we have lockdowns and mandates out there that are creating PTSD, which people could use plant medicine to get through. So, big love to the families like yourself, ATM, which are helping international law. We really applaud you and really want to be here to support you. And also we just want to help people, keep it sacred as it moves forward, because it's that sanctity that really speaks to our cellular evolution and our cellular improvements. So, it's trying to stay natural, but using these other methods to enhance it, I think is going to be what brings us towards longevity. So I appreciate the dynamic conversation, and each person's, expertise in the field, makes it a whole conversation. Thank you.
Well, I have somewhere I kind of want to shift the conversation towards our good friend Wade, who's in the room. He's just been hanging out. I wanted to first say, welcome, brother. I know that you're hurting right now with the ribs, and it would be nice for everyone to give Wade a little bit of love as he's, at home right now, sort of in bed with some damage to his body. So we're thinking about you, brother.
What happened? I missed this.
Hi, everybody.
Wade.
Hey, Wade.
Wade here. What happened, Mark, is back in September, I fractured a rib on my right side.
Oh.
And I did it climbing out of bed. Didn't fall down, nothing. No reason that's apparent for that to happen. But went to the hospital and got x-rays, and sure enough, fractured a rib. And in conversation with my doctor, we both agreed that seemed very odd. And so, yeah, a series of blood tests revealed that I am profoundly deficient in vitamin D3.
Wow.
And as a farmer who spends hours each day outside, I eat really good food. I pay attention to the things that I expose myself to. I use cannabis on a regular basis. I feel like I'm a person who should be enjoying good health. But in fact, it's my take on it, as I've talked with my doctor and done a little research. Vitamin D3 deficiency does not happen suddenly. This has been going on for years for me. It's probably why I hurt my back in 2018. And at the moment, yeah, I'm getting on 2 weeks pretty much in bed, because not only do I have the one fractured rib, but there's a chiropractor who's been to see me is of the opinion I've got a couple of fractured ribs on the other side of my rib cage. And in addition, a couple of ribs that are dislocated. Just having a grand old time here. But now that I know what's going on, the fact that I'm so deficient, actually I'm deficient enough in vitamin D3 that if I were a child, I would be diagnosed with rickets, which is a really horrible disease. So, much thanks and appreciation for Monica, my partner, who is working her fanny off to keep up with my needs, as well as the farm and everything else that's going on here. Emotionally and mentally, I feel inspired and deeply grateful again. I feel like there's been a lot of things going on in my life over the last 5 or 6 years that I had trouble understanding why I was experiencing those things. But now that I know that I'm deficient in vitamin D3, I'm taking extremely large doses of it, large enough that they are prescription only. And I've got a good doctor who's helping me with dealing with the issues that are going on. And I look forward to many more years of being an obnoxious and pressing sort of guy, because I feel my health coming back. And I know that when my mind and my heart are inspired, my body will catch up. So at the moment, yeah, I've got my camera turned off, because you don't want to see what I look like laying here in bed going on 2 weeks. I did get a shower this morning for the first time. So yeah, things are getting better, but quite honestly, for the last couple of weeks, I have not been able to sit, stand, or walk without a great deal of pain. And so I'm mostly resting in bed and eating well and taking care of myself, healing, and feeling deeply grateful for such a lovely and amazing woman as a partner. And that's kind of all I got at the moment. I very much am enjoying the conversation about terpenes and learning more deeply the chemistry of the plant. But much like Kelly, I got to keep pointing back to this plant knows what it's doing. And I feel cautious about trying to cut up all the different compounds that are going on in this plant and then think we can put them back together again in a way that provides potentially the same benefit that the plant does all by itself. I think it's important to learn what we can about this plant, because there's no question it's a huge gift to our planet. And yeah, that's kind of all I got. I'm hanging in. I'm loving the conversation. I appreciate, Marcus, you putting on the church this morning, and the usual crew that shows up, and some of the new faces. And you're an inspiration, sir. And I will look forward to many more years of being inspired, and hopefully once in a while inspiring somebody else. Much love.
Always. Every time you share, bro, you're inspiring. Trust that. I appreciate the kind words. And if there's anything the church community, the Hash Church community can do to help you out, like don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know what we can do.
Yeah, Wade, sorry we're going to miss you at the Emerald Cup next week, but, heal well quickly. I look forward to the time when we can embrace again, sir.
Right back at you, Jen. I was really looking forward to it as well. Yeah. 4 months ago, a couple of months ago, I thought, hell, I don't see any way out of this. I don't understand what's happening to me. Feels like my body's falling apart. And now it's like, yeah, it was falling apart, but now it's coming back. And
are there other symptoms or other indicators that would lead you to believe that you have a vitamin D deficiency before you actually start breaking bones?
Other than like feeling like my teeth have gotten soft over the last 10 years. And I was always somewhat puzzled at how I hurt my back in 2018, Mark. I was doing what seemed to be pretty straightforward work that I've done with no problem for years. And yet that year, it turned into a nightmare that resulted in having to have surgery and spending some time in the hospital. And I came out of that feeling pretty good. And yeah, no is the short answer to your question, Mark. What really brought it home was a blood serum analysis that revealed that my blood level content of vitamin D3 was 8 nanograms per milliliter of serum. And normal is somewhere between 40 and 100. So, and yeah, like I said, I don't know why I've gotten so deficient. That's the next step. The next step is to get my bones strong again and build up the vitamin D level in my bloodstream. But I also, the next step after that is to understand why did I become so dramatically deficient in a vitamin that my body should be making with my exposure to the sun and the diet that I pursue. I eat lots of vegetables that we grow right here on the farm. I eat fruit from the farm. I not to call it out, but I eat meat. We buy high quality organic meats, and we don't eat it that often, but I just feel like, yeah, I was doing everything I knew how to do, and yet somehow ended up profoundly deficient in vitamin D. So I guess one of the things I would say to everybody that's listening is trust your doctors, learn what they can offer to you in the way of information that is available about your body, and then pay attention to what's happening to your body. I'm getting to be 70 years old, and yeah, I feel like I got years of troublemaking left, and look forward to having my body back and ready to rock and roll.
Well, we appreciate you, Wade, for sure. And it really does speak to kind of like the whole conversation that we've been talking about today, trying to create this, the shared lexicon and going down the sensory rabbit hole. Like, it's to do things like the blood serum test that you got done. That's what it's for. It's to learn things that we can't learn and know from like things that have been passed down necessarily from our grandmothers or whatnot. Like, there are certain things that we can't just assume. And then we go to science and we get that blood serum test and we get told, you have this deficiency. So it's really kind of a full circle to the story. I really hope you're feeling better, Wade. And I want to welcome Dr. Allison. How the heck are you?
Hi, I actually have a Post-it here from a client that I've been waiting to see Wade for a long time. And Wade, can you give me a recommendation for an indica leaning CBD, please?
Harlequin was an indica leaning mix of indica and sativa. A high CBD version of it, you could go to Harley Sue or ACDC, or there's dozens and dozens and dozens of different cultivars that are out there right now. Actually, I bet Etienne would be a better person to answer that question, because he's seeing what's available in the California marketplace through the dispensaries. I know what's, heritage market, if you will, what was happening a few years ago. But yeah, I bet Etienne would have a good suggestion on that. Thank you, Dr. Allison.
Good to see you, Etienne.
Wade, I would agree with you. The problem is, unfortunately, is we are not seeing CBD cultivars showing up at the dispensaries nowadays. We're seeing all the bastard stepchildren, but we're not seeing any CBD dominance lately. And I'm not sure if it's from the grow, supply, or manufacturing, but we are deficient here in California. So growers, manufacturers, please, we need to do better.
Etienne, are we allowed to ship stuff to California?
No, it's still illegal because it's still federal mail. So it has to be in California by California to Californians, unfortunately, until, of course, as we know, the interstate commerce discussion is gaining more traction now more than ever. And there are letters that are being put forth to, push more for that, because I want to be able to benefit from other people, as well as I want to be able to send people, genetics and things like that, because there will be a time here in the future when you can say, yes, I want to order a Harlequin specific. I need these many genetics. Bam. Okay. I want to be able to do so here. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. And right now, currently, we've got two competitions open in California. Emerald Cup is accepting for its 2022 competition. And currently, I'm the ambassador for the state of California for its actually cannabis competition for the state fair, because it's not actually at a county level working its way up to state yet. So there is CBD flower as part of the both of those competitions. So I'm very much looking forward here. I know we won't see the competition from Emerald Cup until next year as judges, because now it's waiting until the harvest comes in and then going forward. It's one of the unfortunate yet fortunate things that happened due to COVID, is they prolonged the competition last year, so we were able to get all the samples in the spring so that we could actually get a true representation of the harvest that happened here in California. However, I'm hoping that we'll be able to see some Harlequins and others place here at the state fair, so that we can make everybody aware, but also see the need for production and getting this genetic out there to the market, because currently it's only for legal manufacturers in the state of California. However, in the future, it's going to be open to backyard growers, because here in California, any adult over the age of 21 can grow 6 plants. But we have to kind of wait for the county situation to come on board. So we're kind of leapfrogging initially with the state to hopefully get the counties to come on board, so that we can have a true competition like you would in any natural state, where it rises from the county level then to the state level. You see what I'm saying? And then at that point, wouldn't you love to be able to then export or import any of these winners, losers, etc.? You know what I'm saying? Because then as these competitions come on board in your states and in your regions, I want to be able to taste and sample or grow that genetic of those particular winners to see what I can actually do the best out of. So I hope that these competitions, as they become larger, will also make people more understanding as a whole on these CBD varietals and how beneficial they are, because daily I'm getting patients who are asking and looking for it. And of course, I recommend a saturation of, THC and CBD together to help them get an understanding for their own understanding of what their own symbiosis of what their own natural feeling should be or be like. So sorry, long-winded.
No, that's okay. So I've been doing a lot more cannabis assisted psychotherapy. And so that's why I was asking for a CBD leaning indica, because a lot of these people have like high amounts of anxiety, but the anxiety is also for THC. Like they're terrified to touch THC, but they hear how cannabis is amazing. And so I've been looking for one so that we can start out with a CBD and then slightly move them into a little bit of THC. But having something that's a little more on the relaxing side will allow for them to like open their heart and have some vulnerability in the session.
That's why we recommend starting off with the teas, like for older women. Like when my mother wanted to start trying cannabis, she doesn't smoke. So one of the things that we found is we found certain teas and tea companies make varietals like a 20-to-1 CBD to 1 THC. Well, that was a perfect way to introduce her into trying it, because she got very little THC, but it felt very relaxed. And one of the things that we have found is especially CBD helps balance things out. I myself take a 2-to-1, 2 THC to 1 CBD. I know some people prefer 1-to-1. Some people can handle the 18-to-1, etc. So it's finding what your body has and likes. But when we start getting
I like
out
20
of
to
those
0.
realms, right? So what works for you and what ratio is key. However, I have a friend of mine who likes to hang around stoners like Rob Clark, et cetera, and he says when he goes to hang out with them, he'll take 60 milligrams of just CBD, so that when he's hanging with these experts, he can smoke all night and not get absolutely blitzed, because he can hang with them and not feel so anxious and paranoid because of the amount of CBD he's puts in his system. It's counteracting and balancing out that effect. So he's not actually getting that effect. And then finding then later, just then small spikes of terpene rich cannabis then brings on the desired effect. So again, it's about finding your natural biome, but I think it is very crucial with CBD varietals, especially initially because of the anxiety, and especially in a therapeutic environment when people are first experimenting with cannabis. I myself have known when I've given somebody too much, it's easily to make them go from absolutely happy and giddy and relaxed to absolutely paranoid to a level of uncomfortableness that makes everyone around them uncomfortable. And so those are the things that we try to avoid, and why with my experimentation working with patients over the decades have found a blend of THC CBD in both low variety, low spikes are very helpful to introduce them comfortably into it. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have any type of negative reaction, but it's as least as we can make the climb in as possible, make the bed as warm as we can when we get into it on a cold night, right?
I wonder if people were really paranoid before the DEA started locking people up and giving them 20, 30 years at a time, like infusing paranoia into cannabis the way the meat industry infuses the tortured flesh and adrenaline soaked flesh, out to the people. It's like, what are you trying to do? You're attacking the very thing that is good for PTSD and relaxation, and you're infusing it with paranoia. You know what? Fuck you, law enforcement.
ATM, does California Assembly Bill, after the FDA denied the Charlotte Webb's petition, or I'm sorry, the Charlotte company, denied the listing of it as a dietary supplement. And in California Assembly Bill, which was passed in October, now makes CBD available as a dietary supplement in California. So do you think production will catch up with that? So, your original premise, which was, I need to see this stuff in my dispensary. Do you think that that'll change production to put CBD leaning cultivars on the radar for producers in California?
I hope. I don't know that to be the case. You know what I'm saying? In the sense that The legislation is still not finished in the sense that I cannot still have CBD products in there. However, I can now have sativa derived CBD varietals in the future in my dispensary. So I'm already starting to get hit by CBD distributors, manufacturers from the outside world that are the non-cannabis starting to dangle their foot into our reality. I am very hopeful that we are going to see more people start to experiment and play with these varieties and start to break out every type of ratio so that every type of ratio is available. Okay, because unfortunately, right now, the only way to do so is to isolate it, set it aside, et cetera, as opposed to have every specific THC to CBD ratio available. That's not available. I would love to see that available so that people can then document and isolate what works for them individually, because I'm still getting people all the time, especially people I went to high school with and grade school with, are like, hey, you're a cannabis expert. Tell me which CBD company out there is right for
every
me.
time.
Right? How many times a day do you
yeah.
get that? I'm like, I got no fucking clue. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to bullshit you and tell you something I don't know. If I can see science that backs it up, et cetera, the only way I've seen that is the route that we have created here in California. So I see it through the distributors and manufacturers at the cannabis level. We do not see that at the professional outside manufacturer level yet. I anticipate it will in time, and hopefully, yes, I hope that more of that access will cause that. However, I still think there's a problem with the CBD manufacturers currently in play, just as CBD from the hemp, because they're not investing in the hemp infrastructure. So there's a lot of problems. I love the CBD. However, I hate that they're being so easy on themselves by just cutting the flowers, by not putting in real infrastructure for manufacturing, for the decortication, for actually making hemp into viable products, much less, foodstuffs, etc. We still don't have just that basic understanding, and we're still so far behind. So I do hope that some of these CBD people will step into the THC realm, and some of these THC people will step into the CBD realm, so that we can get that biodiversity that's needed for the patients themselves currently, because it is sorely missing. And so once that's there, I would like to see that next step, because then Allison has all these different ratios to try from, starting from one end and working her way back, or working your way up, however, or whichever way in the spectrum you find yourself, or where your body is acclimated to or is used to. So that's not understood.
I see that Wade has his hand up. An interesting aspect I do just want to throw out with regard to using cannabis as a therapy tool, we kind of want to push them to that line of anxiety, because when you push them to that line of anxiety during a therapy session, then you can explore what it is that's causing that anxiety. And so I love what you're saying, Etienne, about being able to go from like 20 to 1 to like 10 to 1 to 5 to 1, and slowly move them in that direction towards that increase of anxiety that really helps to, it's what we work from as a therapist. So, but I saw Wade had his hand up, so I'll retract.
No, I think you make an excellent point, Allison. Myself, I'm not a big fan of pushing people on their dose. What drove me to raise my hand was Etienne's observation about, I think it was a grandmother having a cup of tea as a way of getting into cannabis without dealing with the fear. And I think we talk a lot about the chemistry of the cannabis plant and the various ways that chemistry might affect people. But we don't talk very much about the different ways of getting that chemistry into your body, the different ways of preparing that chemistry into a product that can be taken into the body, or dose, or frequency of use, or any of those other things, all of which play, in my experience at least, a huge part in what you can benefit from by using cannabis. Smoking or inhalation is one way to gain benefit from the use of cannabis, but is one way. It is not the only way. It's the way we talk about a lot. It's the way our culture sees cannabis being consumed in the media and whatnot. But I gotta be honest, other than my own personal use and maybe 1 in 50 patients I've worked with over the years, most people I've worked with don't want to smoke, either because they're kids or they're elders or they're people who are scared of cannabis. And I have found again and again by looking at the needs of that person and the chemistry of the plants in oils that I might have on hand, I can usually find some way of preparing those oils that the person will not only benefit from it, but want to use it again. And then part of the education that I try and do on dosing is help them to understand how to find the dose that works for them, that they would be willing to repeat that dose to start building the vitality and health of their endocannabinoid system. And a lot of the things that we talk about, everything from PTSD to neuralgia to seizures to cancer, all of these various conditions and many more respond to cannabis because the endocannabinoid system is involved in those conditions. And it really is about, for me, not unlike tending the soil of your garden. Slowly but surely, you build the vitality, the diversity of your garden soil. You'll see better and better results. And here I am laying in my bed talking about diversity and building your health and all that, but it does work.
Yeah, you know what? That's still, you like you said, like Nick said earlier, you know, what are you going to give up? No, you got to keep going. So, you know, it's always going to be about health and well-being, even if you're currently, you know, still, you know, working towards that, because I think we're all working towards health and well-being. So yeah, no, I definitely hear you, Wade, and your message. And it's also wonderful to see you, Allison, and everyone who's joined Brian. Haven't heard from Kylie yet, but big love to you. And Kelly wants to say something here in a sec, but I just wanted to say really quickly, I think it's important that we connect the medicine growers and makers to the customer and the consumer, or what I like a better word than customer and consumer, but to, you know, to the compassionate care family, because often in these legalized paradigms, we have detached medicine makers from the patients. So now patients have to go to an alternative doctor, or which is great, you know, or a secondary source or a bud tender to try and find out, you know, what the medicine maker is embodying. So what we've seen like this last weekend is a beautiful thing, a farmer's market in Northern California in the Sebastopol area. Give thanks, you know, DEM Pure Farmers, a lot of them were there, and they were able to share their home made products, their natural farmed, regenerative medicine, eco packaged from the farmer to the consumer medicine. Awesome. Now, when that person comes up to the table and they make a not only a chemical interaction through their conversation, you know, they're automatically now they're letting down and exudating chemicals based off their conversation. It allows, and in that way, it opens up a pathway to the medicine, because now that person has an open pathway to the medicine that they got from the medicine maker. And so, you know, they're going to be excited when they get home to take that medicine because they talked to the person who created it, rather than the secondary bud tender, which I have all the love in the world for. And I think anyone helping is great, but we should empower the farm gate sales systems and these farmers market systems to happen in other places in the world. So it's not only coming through, you know, therapy sessions. And Kelly had one more thing to say. Did you?
I just, Wade, I wanted to touch on to you. We were having actually a bit of a chicken attack up there. So it's time the goshawks like to come around. So I had to run upstairs. And I was listening to what you were just saying, Wade. First of all, so much love to you. And I really wanted to say that there's a real overlooked thing right now in the world as far as vitamin D, B12, and iron uptake, and that's called MTHFR. So please have your doctor check for MTHFR, which is a methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, which means that it's limiting your enzymatic uptake within your body. And this is something that Alan Beer had brought up. He wrote a book, I believe in the 40s, calling Is Your Body Baby Friendly? Because so many people were losing children to this inability to uptake amino acids through this reductase. This absolutely is totally defined in vitamin D as well. So please have your doctor check for those MTHFR mutations. And I just really wanted to say that and pass on my love to you. It's something that a lot of people continue to see: low iron, low vitamin B, D, low vitamin B12, and they don't know where it's coming from. This is something that is incredibly common with European descent people, because basically the people who survived were the people who came from clotters. So heavy duty
on the battlefield, or
yeah, if a
war.
lot of us that are white European descendants, the reason why we're still alive is because we came and survived from people that clotted. So people that bled out weren't able to go have, more generations. This is incredibly prevalent. This man Alan Beer had said he was seen as a heretic. They took away his license. He said that it was maybe 1 in every 4 people, and now we're actually recognizing it could be 3 in every 4 people, with the possibility of 6 different mutations. This absolutely is totally integral to our endocannabinoid system, the uptake of cannabinoids, where people are having a lot of toxic issues with different types of cannabinoids, as well as toxic issues with food. This is a real root of it. And I know I'm going off on this, but it's really important. So love you, Wade.
It's hilarious that you mentioned that, because I have 4 out of the 6 mutations for the MTHFR. And I have, so I supplement with folinic acid and methylfolate. And after years of trying a bunch of different SSRIs and other antidepressants and therapy, simple 2B vitamins have made all the difference. It's hugely important. And yeah, the vitamin D deficiencies are, they're more. I don't think all the mutations are identified yet, but they are definitely a thing. And it's I sent a couple of articles up, or at least references earlier. But yeah, again, it's complex, and the more data we have, the better sort of we're able to sort of identify and treat.
Yep. And I just wanted to say, in conjunction with that vitamin D and the inability to uptake the vitamin D through this methylation issue, which also leaves toxicities within our body for longer. So people who have more mutations will hold on to toxins in their body much longer. So people who don't have any MTHFR mutations maybe can get over a hangover within 24 hours. People with many different mutations, maybe it could take them 2 weeks to 2 months to 6 months to actually get over that alcohol abuse that they had. But I wanted to say a side door to the vitamin D is silica. So it's also one that is very not utilized. Whenever we test our blood, when we test soil, when we test plants, when we test our food, silica is low. So silica can help propagate the uptake of vitamin D as well.
And also, so like when I drink this, I put in C90 into this, which is, dehydrated ocean water. It's 84 trace minerals plus 6 rare earth elements that are coming up from ocean vents. And then there's 50,000 organisms that come alive. Now I take it down from boiling, and then I put a little bit of chlorella or a little bit of spirulina in there, along with the raw cacao and the lion's mane. and a little bit of maca
Test.
and a bit
Test.
of. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. You're hearing that. Anyway, the point is that, it really is, and it can become an amazing, food as medicine, and break the blood-brain barrier and add trace minerals to your diet along with the algae and the nootropic medicine of lion's mane, is something to look towards is nootropic medicine, cellular regenerative medicine.
Mm-hmm. And the moral of the story is that we are producing foods that are devoid of full spectrum minerals. So therefore, we are starting to produce humans that are unable to fully uptake all the minerals because minerals are not there and available. So that's why it's really important for us to continue with mineral uptake.
And breed food for higher amino acids, breed food and medicine for higher flavonoids and more color content, because those are the secondary spectrums that enhance what the main constituents have to offer.
Thank you for sharing. I wanted to shift the conversation a little bit back to bring Kylie into the conversation and to welcome Brian from D-Nail, who just rolled in. I thought the one thing we didn't hit too much on today is kind of like, where we talked about trying to create this kind of think tank group and shared lexicon, just kind of go down this rabbit hole and, having, kind of having the technology or device that allows for the most, unique preservation of the profile before it actually gets to your mouth and into your lungs. Because that's really, you can test anything that you want. You can test the flour, you can test the hash, you can test the oil, but until you heat it up and volatilize it into your throat, that's really the compounds that you're getting, not the ones that you may have tested prior at room temperature, like Nick had mentioned earlier. So I just thought it would be cool to introduce you, Brian, and get Kylie back in the conversation and kind of talk a little bit about, because you've been doing crazy things, dude, also, like just the artistic nature of what you've been doing. You can tell by how beautiful and symmetrical it is that it's somehow better. And maybe you can speak a little bit of that, Brian.
Yeah, real quick, is my microphone working?
I hear you, Brian. How you doing?
Doing all right. I can't hear myself, and I've had equipment issues in the past. On that subject, we had a really interesting revelation recently where previously we've been considering our work in terms of flavor. And having been originally based in New York, we couldn't talk about any of the other pharmacology without risking a huge legal consideration. But some of the newer nails that run a little bit more efficiently, people keep asking, why am I getting a different high? How am I getting higher? How am I still up and alert? And we had this epiphany that as we've been pursuing flavor preservation, we've been changing the pharmacology too. Flavor is chemical preservation through phase change. You want to be able to take your substance, convert it to a gas, get it through your system as quickly as possible without degradation. And we're using a non-homogeneous substance with things that vaporize across a huge spectrum of temperatures, which often gives you have to degrade to THC to delta 9 from THCA in order to get the pharmacology, and B, a lot of the other elements are getting time to destroy themselves in the process. So as we hit new heights in efficiency, we haven't done chemical testing on it, just anecdotal. We're pretty sure that what we're seeing is a lower mitigation of CBN from the higher efficiency nails and higher efficiency systems, lending itself to a completely different high. So like Marcus said, we're final delivery device, how efficient that is, throw a dab in an 800-degree banger and you do not have, and you might want that effect. You might want something that's burned some of the terpenes and has a high CBN content and is going to help put you to sleep. But for the subtlety, the fine points, the harder to reach stuff, really doing justice to everything the growers, the breeders, the processors have worked so hard to get into the jar, you need an ultra efficient system. And having spent time originally in nail design and then in cannabis distillation and distillation theory, coming back to nail design with advanced distillation theory under my belt, the effects are actually stunning. We're not a research facility. We're a development facility. So in order to actually sit down and do that, we'd need to do a bunch of controlled situations, put the same oil in, run it through a bunch of systems, different temperatures, different systems, different materials present. But I guarantee you'll find different results in the vapor coming off of them. And that can lead to an intelligent guide for how to use your tools to get what you're looking for from your oil. And it's really the last stage in it. It's what happens right before it goes to your face. I couldn't talk about the farming, I couldn't talk about the biology of it, but the physics of it that actually preserve it in motion, or in some cases intentionally control the degradation. It's not really studied, and it's something I've spent my life's work on, and I only kind of realized in the last year that we're changing how high you get or what kind of high you get. There's a lot to do there. I could go into the specifics of how it all works, but that's the broad overview of where I am in my work. We're looking at controlled conditions that actually do in your hardware give you some options on how you're outputting your chemicals.
What's your favorite temperature to smoke at?
Okay, first, there's no one answer to that. Second, it's depending on your system. Say we're using a temperature-controlled heater on a sapphire electric nail. If we're going just for flavor, we're going in just at about 420 degrees on the heater setting, which is giving us about 400 degrees on the nail, just enough to vaporize everything and have really, really good flavor. It's not gonna give you any sort of large volume of dab, and sometimes you can be distilling off some of the volatiles. We like sapphire because for reasons unknown to me, it doesn't like to just distill off the volatiles. It likes to peel it off in layers and vaporize it. On a slurper, we'll go in at 575 on the stem, which is way too hot to go in on a banger, but physics of phase change, if you're quickly and efficiently evaporating off of something that's higher than your boiling point, you'll be able to change phase and escape at your boiling point. Since it's a torch system, we don't have a good electric slurper worked out. You're effectively able to bypass what your working temperatures would be and get a longer dab window out of it. The kind of oil, the terpene content present, what you're actually trying to achieve. There's always a trade-off between flavor and vapor. And kind of the high end right now is 575 on the centrifugal vertical lift torch systems, the low end being about 420 on a sapphire temperature controlled heater. Past that, we find that our new carb cap is so efficient, we have to pull our temperatures down and use about half the breath pressure to get the same exact effect on one of the systems. So your hardware, your tools, your oil, pure diamonds, you want to run in hotter because you don't have terpenes to worry about. You need to be able to break them down quickly. Something that's super duper saucy, you need to come down. It's a billion different kinds of oil and 100,000 different kinds of desired effects in people. That's a range. There's no one answer.
From my experience, efficiency is related to vaporizing each of the individual components in your concentrate at the lowest possible temperatures. We're talking cold starts. When you subject certain like light volatiles to high temperatures, there's a huge temperature difference there and a more likelihood of it converting into something that could be potentially toxic.
What
you're doing is
that degradation from happening. It's going to degrade. There's no question about it.
It degrade, but can you control the degradation?
Yes.
A low ramp, or do you want to just drop it on something that's 400 degrees and take the chance that you're going to possibly be breaking it apart or more dangerous compounds?
You guys are probably intimately familiar with that Dr. Robert Strongen at Oregon State. Yeah, so I mean, this is the guy that basically said, "Oh, be careful when you dab because you're going to degrade things into acrolein and benzene and all that." And
was that the 710 myrcene study? Yeah, that was great science. Sorry.
Well, it was interesting, Brian, because when I first saw that, I'm like, wow, I need to reproduce this because this is really important to either say this is bullshit or that this is really happening. And then when you pull his procedure, he had one of those stupid smoking machines. It's like, where the fuck do you get that, right?
Yeah, he wasn't using the right test equipment.
Can
No,
I
but
chime in about
he's getting a lot of press, and I think he's getting a lot of people concerned and worried about consuming concentrates this way. Yeah, I mean, I don't exactly know where to go with that, but I think that there can be some work. I know that Marcus Rogan, I don't know if you guys know that guy up in Canada. I think he kind of came up with some other type of device that can measure some of the compounds and looking at different conditions to try to understand what those degradation profiles are and what they're not. But I don't think that there's a good study out there that basically can quantify this.
I agree with you. Oh, sorry, I don't know whose turn it was. Can I say one thing about degradation, then I'm off the floor for a sec?
Please.
Okay. One of the things that took a minute to realize, because it's not obvious unless you're actually in it, that getting the things through phase change and out, it's about escape conditions. And boiling point and your running temperatures are the most important parts. But if you've got a 385 degree banger and it's got a 2 milliliter deep pool of stuff, terpenes that are trying to boil at 50, 80 Celsius, they're going to be stuck in the tar. They're going to get time and contact to destroy themselves. Everything's spinning around into a thin film in a centrifuge. The vapor can escape. There's no time. Everything's always changing phase at its boiling point. You throw water at 250 degrees or 1,000,000 degrees, it's 212 in normal pressure the instant it's created. Every moment it gets in contact with that higher heat source, it can overheat. So one of the things that we're really doing, it's fluid dynamics. It's hacks of getting the vapor to escape as it's created. So when I'm talking about running hotter on these more efficient nails, we're going from room temperature outside the nail being processed in, through, up, and around in less than a second in a lot of instances. And there's just no time for it to overheat, even though it's briefly touching a higher heat source.
Hey, Brian, do you mind putting a couple videos up, like sharing your screen and showing some of the videos that, because earlier you said like when you came out of the distillation world, you were like, oh, I'm going to apply some of that short path molecular distillation or falling film or rising film evaporator aspect and kind of create bangers. It would be great if if you tell me your Instagram account, I just couldn't find it. I could find your personal one.
I've known you for like a decade.
I know you got too many, dude.
No, we had to reboot all our media. It's at DNAIL USA, just DNAIL USA.
It's weird that just didn't come up in my search.
I think we're shadow banned.
Definitely are shadow banned. Okay, I can do it. I've got some up here. You can keep talking, or whoever's talking.
One of the conditions.
I'll show a few of these.
One of the conditions that Brian and Kylie, one of the conditions that I've been looking at is obviously there's the vacuum distillation or ambient pressure and other such situations, and I think about it in terms of theoretical plates if we're talking about distillation, and the more you can get, the better resolution you should have, and so like vacuums tend to reduce those, and changing the pressure conditions and the vapor pressure and the temperature. Oh, that's a beautiful tool. But yeah, looking at the thin film, it's a fantastic way to get things to flash off real quick. And so long as you don't flood the plates or don't overload it, it's a way to get them to go pretty quick.
Yep, but we can't dab under vacuum. If we could, my job would be easy. What we're doing is taking. You're right. The thin films. You're getting. They're there for better escape conditions. I've been focusing on trying to have this is going to be a good one. No accessories in it. You see how in that video everything's spreading out into thin stripes.
Lovely.
So this is an attempt to miniaturize the aspects of a thin film evaporator or a centrifugal evaporator. The dabber coming in from the outside is running like your feed chamber. We run the dish at a lower temperature like a prime. So depending on how we do it, how we control it, everything's going from room temperature to vapor so fast that it's really mitigating the amount of degradation from the time component, which does allow us to even run hotter. This is actually my favorite nail is going to. This is my most recent thought on how a nail wood should work. And
this Venus, Brian?
Yeah, that's Venus. There's no time for anything to sit in a hot puddle and cook. Everything's only in the working zone when it's being engaged. And because everything's in motion, the actual oil that's not contacting and getting vaporized doesn't get a chance to overheat. And then it falls back down to a cooler chamber so it doesn't cook while it's in motion. That one's just the most elegant iteration of that particular design. But the notion that this pursuit of efficiency was leading to a preservation of cannabinoids just had not occurred to me until earlier this year. The flavor's there. This work is overall concept, material science, fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, and I have 0 PhDs. My company has 0 PhDs. We just kind of think about how it all comes together and keep doing it.
Dude, you don't need PhDs. You have DABs, bro.
PhCs.
I like to think that I've spent more time thinking about dab physics than most people. There's plenty of qualified people that could be brought up to speed, run circles around me, but they're usually doing more traditional, conventional work. Mark, by the way, you're one of the most important people in this industry scientifically. I'm honored to be here with you.
Oh, well, thank you. Wait, which Mark?
You. No, wait. Mark versus Marcus.
I'm Marcus.
Mark and Marcus.
Marcus is industry glue.
Dude, you're the scientific community. I'm not. I'm just the humble host. Please.
People like you hold us together, but we haven't. Mark and I haven't really talked much, but you pop up in a lot of circles, and I've got a lot of respect for you. So it's really an honor.
Thank you. The feeling is definitely mutual. I think that it's interesting that you say dab physics because I never thought of it quite in those terms, but it certainly is.
That's my field.
Brian, I don't know if you ever see this misconception, but whenever you see the boiling points of the cannabinoids and they list THC at 157 or 315 Fahrenheit, right? They didn't realize that when Meshulam measured that boiling point back in 1964, it was at a vacuum pressure of 0.05 torr. So the boiling point at atmospheric pressure is much, much greater than that. What we found is that, if you use the nomograph, you can basically find the boiling point of THC is somewhere around 429 degrees centigrade.
We're able to get some escape conditions at lower temperatures than that, but we are lowering the pressure with carb caps. And we're also, when it's in solution, it's going to have some aspect of being able to escape a little bit earlier. We are getting vapor with dish surfaces in the 400 range, but you're right. A pure diamond isn't going to do it much more than melt at that point.
And what about diamondium? Can you tell us a little bit about that and why that's different from ruby?
I can tell you a little bit about it, and I'm still okay. So the relationship between material science and dabs is something that I partially understand, having done this for a long time. When we did a global survey about 9 years ago, the state of the art in material science was the titanium guy saying quartz would kill you, the quartz guy saying titanium would kill you. So we're like, there's got to be more to it. We sorted materials by their ability to withstand the conditions, both thermally and chemically, and then just started looking for additional answers. We settled on silicon carbide and sapphire as two of the materials we wanted to introduce. And we've done a lot of work with other things. This one in particular, once we had an understanding of the kind of things you'd see on a material spec sheet that would actually lend themselves to flavor, this kind of topped the charts theoretically, but at the time it was hundreds of thousands of dollars a kilogram, so we laughed and kept going. Some patents expired, some prices came down, and the market changed. That pillar that you just showed has a retail of like $550, and it's 18 millimeters by 6. It is expensive stuff. We wanted to do the inserts because we thought we'd actually be able to get them cost effective, and ended up doing small parts. And what we saw in small parts was flavor reviews in excess of what we thought was possible from small parts. Someone putting a 5 millimeter sphere in a banger flavor reviews off the charts. Now, the basic thermal properties, that stuff moves heat over 1,000 times faster than quartz. It's almost completely functionally inert, and it's extremely non-stick. So you get that in motion in your system, you effectively have a spinning disk of a heat superhighway. And what that does for quickly and efficiently getting everything to phase change and get out is astonishing.
Yeah.
Astonishing to the point where people with a low sense of smell or taste are trying it and hitting me back and saying, thank you, I'd never tasted my oil before. Mark's nodding, but in order to get in, that's some of the basics of it. And there's more to it that I literally don't know. I literally don't know all of it.
Dead, Brian? Like, I don't see much ceramic nails anymore. Are those things gone?
The ceramic nails the full ceramic nails that were popularized were low-grade alumina, prone to explosion. And I think enough time has passed that I can say that the company was more of a stock market scam than a company. So there are options for full ceramics. Everything that we like would be dramatically more expensive than quartz. We're still making ceramic parts, ceramic inserts.
Doesn't Puffco use a ceramic bowl?
Yeah, they're using. I believe they're using a higher quality alumina than Hive used to use. Hive was the company that really popularized ceramic nails, and they shot that in the foot. Puffco, I would say is I haven't tested it. I think it's alumina. It's the only thing that would fit their price points. People make aftermarket parts for them: quartz, silicon carbide, sapphire for the most part. But other than silicon carbide inserts, there's one that people have been using, aluminum nitride. Mark, if you can find a paper that says anything other than aluminum nitride degrades in contact with water and shouldn't be used for dabs, I'd love to see it, because I've gotten a lot of shit for saying that.
Well, a lot of things with those ceramics is they're manufactured in bulk, and unfortunately, a lot of them are made over in China. So you always got to wonder, like, what kind of trace components might be in there. Just like the whole thing with shiny metal, objects that you're getting from a Chinese factory could have any number of, cadmium, lead, mercury. So are the impurities that are often present in ceramics just basically take those completely off the table?
No, not completely. So ceramic is as broad of a term as metal. If you say you can't get good ceramic, you say you can't get good metal, you can't get good glass. It's just anything can be done with a standard. And ceramic is one of the broadest categories of materials in the world. One of the reasons we're doing trade names now is because everything we've done in new materials has opened us up to having a lower grade impure copy of it done, or some version of it, in many cases so cheap that people cut us out of our own marketplace. So I've found that I've given people the inspiration to make bad products.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, right?
It is. And it's hard to patent stuff in this industry, and even if you get it through, no one particularly cares. So it's when we did silicon carbide and sapphire, we just talked about them as what they were. If people are using jewelry grade sapphire and ruby on everything, we're still using optical grade sapphires on everything. Big difference. We used to pay $250 for sapphire parts and sell them for $300, because $250 was what they cost, and no one wanted to pay more than $300.
Wow.
New technology.
Have the issues with supply chains affected your raw material costs much?
Raw materials, not so much. Actually, the electrical components for the DNL controllers have been the problem where we suffered. For raw materials, quartz is going to go up a little bit. Every place that we were finding our raw materials were going to go up, we were able to address it with bulk increases in purchases to keep everything the same. But yeah, no, we're going to see crazy inflation, and everything's going to be weird soon.
But you are also seeing other companies coming around and start to knock off even your silicon carbide. You know what I'm saying? So it shows you that you were ahead of the curve, and the industry is coming around to your thought once they realize and understand what they are having, what they're dealing with. So I want to thank you personally. I've been using your stuff for nearly a decade, or since your inception, and your consistent availability to always improving yourself and never settling for what is out there and always pushing the boundaries is something that needs to be applauded and commended, because it's very expensive and hard to do this type of research and development. And I thank you for the love you've given me and the discounts over the years, because I gift all these things to other people and stoners who are just coming on, because, again, it was very expensive early on. Now the price of the components are much more in reach of your average consumer, as opposed to just being within the reach of, those that could afford a lot. So not only congratulations on your creation, but creating new things, but also bringing price points down so it's more affordable over time. I know you absorb those costs through all of your R&D because it's so expensive. So I know most people don't have the cojones to do that. So thank you for being a leader and a pioneer in that resolve, because that's why I continue to follow you. And what you do is because you don't settle for what's out there. You don't even settle for your own. You're always trying to find new paths and new pathways, which too few companies in the dab industry are doing. So
everyone wants to be second, man. My wife says that all the time. It's so cheap to be second. Thank you. That really means a lot to me. And
ditto for me. I froze up, but exactly what he said.
Same for me, Brian. That diamondium is next level for sure. Worth every penny.
Thank you.
Keep up.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, your work is insane, man. Like
Dragonfly family.
Big love, man. Your work is top notch. No one touches it.
Anybody want to give me like $1 billion and a bunch of grad students that no one needs back anytime soon? I got stuff to do.
Maybe.
Might be able to find you some grad students.
I don't
Come
have
on, billionaires. You're watching and you want to contribute. These are the people that are passionate, that care, that take the time, that are always thinking out and thinking through it. These are the people that are leading us in a better, more healthier, and more healthful way. Any type of harm reduction one can do. I'm a permanent patient. Okay. So any type of less harm that I can do to myself, the better I can prolong my life, and I can educate my patients to prolong their life. So thank you for giving us the tools that allow us to help prolong people's lives. That's something I think that isn't really thought or understood as well, but you understand that gravity and you challenge yourself to do better. And that's, again, more reasons why I love y'all.
Shoulders of giants too. There wasn't a scene. I mean, like it was a crime most of my life. It was weird to not pursue an academic career and decide to just work on this. Couldn't imagine a different life. Proud to be here with you guys.
There could be a lot of health practitioners that don't have jobs anymore because of mandates. So you could have like a lot of people on your hands.
If people are giving away $1 billion for research, I could use $2 billion.
Welcome, Sam, by the way. Holy smokes.
I didn't even notice that Hash Church was on. I was laying in bed and I looked on the computer and I said, oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. Well, you made it, dude. I'm telling you, I was going till noon today, so we still got about 15 minutes.
Well, there's nothing. 15 minutes will really hold everything I have to say.
That's it? That's all you're going to say? Hey, don't you have one of those Indux Labs units?
I absolutely do. Correct.
Hey, Sam.
Let's do a dab, guys.
Howdy.
What are you guys smoking on?
Oh, gosh.
I forget what it's called, but it's fairly good.
Let's do a little check-in. I got some stuff that I want to give a huge shout out to 710 Labs for gifting me a plethora of their work, and everything that they had gifted me was stellar and really impressive. And I love seeing people with such passion. And I hope to sit down with y'all one day in session. Thank you. Stuff is phenomenal.
What I'm smoking is rosin, but I forget the actual name of it. I'm sorry.
I wanted to big up best. Go ahead, Etienne.
I got some Arcade of Fire, Eagle Scout Rec is what I'm dabbing on this morning. Good shit.
Nice one. I was smoking on some Hank earlier this morning that I got from Marcus Bubbleman and some of the people over at the Embark and that product. That was pretty tasty. Also, I wanted to shout out Best Friend Farms, Brian over in Maine. He's just becoming DEM Pure certified and out on his farm in Maine and connecting with the community out there and the regenerative farms, and just everyone's doing really out there. And the genetics that he's been breeding just for on a personal level for himself is just really amazing. And the rosin and all the different creations that he's made. And obviously he's been on Hash Church lots of times. So we just wanted to big up over there, Best Friend Farms, and really the whole Maine group is really pretty phenomenal, and they're doing really beautiful stuff along with Michigan. And not to leave out anyone, but I'm talking about Brian over there, and just wanted to say the work he's doing with hash and rosin and also breeding, and then now whole ecosystem farming and health and well-being is pretty
He was
spectacular.
supposed to be here today,
and
man.
he's doing a lot of it.
I sent him the link.
Yeah,
you know what? I'm not sure why he's not. So.
I spoke to him yesterday and this morning actually. So Brian, if you're listening, he might be having technical problems. He said he's been having some internet issues. But yeah, I second everything you say. His work is top notch. Maine is an incredible place and some amazing talent. I mean, I've got some Brave Boat Gardens right here from Maine, incredible indoor stuff, and the whole Maine community. Big love to you guys. Hopefully I'll join you one day.
Also, Brian, Mr. Schroeder, these type 2 caps, you should get a Nobel Prize for. I mean, these are absolutely brilliant, absolutely intelligent, so easy to use, makes the flow and uptake.
Except if you unscrew this and lose the piece, and then you have to use these with the tweezers like this. It's not.
I'm gonna get you a new dabber. I gotta get you one of the new caps too.
It still works.
Right? take a good look at the one Etienne's using versus yours. There's clearly 6 years of technology between them. Oh, you got one of the old school ones. Yeah. The first carb cap was a straight hole and it splashed everything. So we just made a quick change to it to mix everything. The one that Etienne's using, completely different physics. You have to use like half as much pressure to hit that, right?
Yes, compared to this one, which was a previous iteration, which was, I love these. These are great. These are great. I wish you still made these. I know it kind of was part of that early, et cetera, and you've made the taller ones, but these are perfect size. They only have one. I know you'd probably, now it would have 2 holes in it if you actually did them currently, but they're just perfect size and weight. But I liked how you also, these cascades matter because of heat absorption, and as well as this stays a lot cooler up here than if it were down here or if it were straighter. So these types of curves, as well as swells in the glass itself, make a difference in how long you can keep the dabber on top to absorb, because of, again, the older technology of the dabs we were using at the time. But specifically because of the thickness of it as well, I could hold it and sustain it for a longer time, for a longer slow temp dab, than if I did something in these first gen D-nail caps that, of course, the heat just sank so quickly all the way up here. If you went as long, you would literally burn your fingers trying to remove this metal as opposed to this glass.
Actually, if you have our dabber instead of another one, the our dabber has a heat sink built into it, and it's got a thinner area where you can handle it.
It does.
Marcus was holding up a cast sterling silver topper that our friend's family made. I think there's like 10 of those in the world. That was just some gifts that we had for Christmas. My wife's got one. I don't know where the rest went, but man, there's so much to it. Yeah, you got one. I think that was your Christmas present a couple of years ago. There's a lot of work left to do.
Here's the reflex machine you were talking about, Marcus.
Right on.
Yeah, Kylie's in the room, Sam, the gentleman who designed that unit.
Which one is he?
I'm right here.
Oh, howdy.
Nice to meet you.
Do you have the insane 1100?
I don't know what the insane 1100 is.
There's the larger unit that's like it's got a like portable battery power cells in it, and it weighs a ton, and it's just it's hilariously over-engineered.
Briefcase model.
I don't think mine has batteries in it.
Someone help Kylie find a workaround for shipping. He's getting regulations, and there's got to be a workaround.
One thing I can tell you about this pipe is it makes almost everything taste better, especially the first half of the hit.
Hey.
But
Kylie, share your screen, dude.
How do I do that?
Oh, I'm not there.
Do I just talk?
No, you. So there's a bottom there. There's a little. If you look in the bottom menu of the screen, there's a green share screen icon.
I've got him pinned right now, so his screen is the main screen everyone's looking at.
That working?
There you go. Yeah, look at this thing.
Just doing my work on myself, but here's a new briefcase I'm taking out to them.
Yeah, I don't have that big model. I don't know why I don't have it, but I don't.
know why.
but I really like it, but it's fairly complicated to use compared to a regular dabber. That's my only complaint.
Yeah, you have to understand how the size, shape, and quantity and composition controls the vaporization process, and then set your timing periods. Like on your unit right there, you have it set at like 40 seconds. So at the smallest elements, you can run it continuous, like up to 5 cycles or 500 seconds. But when you use the larger, the quicker heating materials, you want to set the timer at a lower period. For instance, with the glow sticks, I like setting at 25 seconds, running it. That'll get me right to preheat at the very onset of vaporization. You'll taste those light volatiles and that sweet nectary flavor, and then I'll turn the dial down to 10 and run subsequent cycles from there to extend the session without overheating.
But like I said, everybody, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's like playing a musical instrument. You really have to master it to get the
Dude,
most.
it's one that I want to master. I want to learn this instrument.
I want to play that thing.
Well, you're welcome to come on over here, and you can play with it for 3 days in a row if that's what you like.
Nice, dude. Open invitation to Skunkman's house to play with this reflux machine. Come on.
Press fire, Sam.
How to use it. That's fast.
The one I've been using a lot lately is this one.
The scope and stack?
Yes, correct.
That's what's called? Yeah. I've heard great things about that one too.
Someone in the comments said this is where we start selling stuff.
Nope. Yeah.
But hey, a lot of the stuff of mine you guys plugged, I don't even have in stock. Don't worry about
it. No, that's for you guys to decide, listeners. They're definitely worth it, though.
I
know like the conversation. That's for sure. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, me too.
The people that I know, and I know how they dab and what they do. I've done some promotional stuff with Bubbleman in the past, but it was never a paid promotion. It was, here's a thing, do an honest review. If you like it, speak well of it, but otherwise don't. What I'm seeing here, it's not paid promo. It's people that know this industry inside and out telling you guys what they actually believe in. I, for whatever my word is worth, that's the truth, not an ad.
That's the way I write it as well. I've never paid for any promotion whatsoever. I just let word of mouth be my only marketing.
Yeah, and that's why I've used my word of mouth to spread the words of those companies that haven't worked. I go back to having the Temp Temple, which was the first, I guess, electronic rig after the highly educated, I guess, was the first one, but it was in such limited quantities, I couldn't find one. So I had to order one of those Temp Temples from Canada, which is this crazy Xbox with that a crazy chrome.
Dude, that big chrome one.
Yeah, it was obnoxious, but it worked wild. And it showed. I also had to create and shift the actual coil around the nail originally because it didn't come attached or of an understanding. So I've seen the progression from starting off in myself 2011 with the torch and then looking for something that didn't scare women or people that are around because, when you're just hanging out, you whip out a fucking huge old fucking blazer, people fucking get nervous because their association from television, everything is that you're using crack, so they start to think that, oh, Jesus Christ, he's using a fucking creme brulee torch and shit.
Dude.
So to find
we just use the straight propane torch, like ghetto, heating up spoons and shit. Like we must have looked completely psychotic.
Absolutely. And so then when these more refined products came available, and then Temp Temple didn't last long. And so then it was to find anybody who was producing any type of electronic nail. And you've been a trailblazer from your initial creation, which was the first one that I found that was kind of a plug and play. Everything all fit together. It was easy to assemble. It wasn't intimidating out the box. There's no way I could take somebody who was a patient and then get a Temp Temple and show, okay, now you're going to need crimpers and some major actual wrenches here to wrap this thing around this titanium. You know what I'm saying? So whereas
those ones also caught fire. They had just a thin little piece of electrical tape. That raw aluminum shell. There were live terminals like 3 millimeters away from them when the electrical tape that they just kind of put over it came off. Fire. Well, they were they had a good idea. They did it, but I mean, like they shouldn't have. I've fixed a number of those, and I've talked to a number of people who like tables or rooms or houses burned. I was doing high energy experiments in my apartment late at night when they were putting them out. But you're right, and that's one of bigger picture stuff. This industry, you can just slap something together and sell it. There's nothing stopping people from making bad products here at all. I don't know when that's going to change, but
seems to be encouraged.
We got our first vaporizer from Ontario back in probably the early 2000s, and it was a botanical. They sold it as a botanical vaporizer, and they gave you a whole catalog of lavender and basil and mullein and mint and thyme, all the different things that you could smoke in it. But it was a kind of cylindrical shaped little unit, and it had a ceramic bowl in it, and I forget the name of the company at the time, but it was the first one that we ever saw in the electronic form before the volcanoes and some of those earlier, different, vaporizers that became popular.
The volcano was before 2000.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well,
I met those guys in Germany.
I know,
in
but
Dortmund,
we didn't.
Like
for some reason, we didn't have the volcano here in the Kootenays early 2000s yet.
I brought it to BC, bro. I brought the volcano.
And the volcano could be used for dabs. You just put that fat little
Brillo pad.
Yeah, the Brillo pad, exactly. And my dry sift bubbled and melted and vaped perfect.
Yeah.
We used to use like like you're describing a bowl when we drill on the top and put a tube in, and then take a soldering gun and then put a metal piece on top of that, and then put the material on top of that and let it vapor.
I got turned on to vaporization in '95, first in Jamaica by a Rastafarian elder named Red, who showed me this very simple method that they were using to vaporize cannabis with, which blew me away. And then the same year, I had a booth at the Cannabis Cup next to Eagle Bill. and he had like the heat gun with the quartz bowl, and I was like, all right, let's give this a shot.
The Stenil gun with the big like
Steinel, yeah,
trumpet.
The huge Steinel.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it was in '98 at Holy Smoke on a coal.
First
That was the
vaporizer
mayor.
I saw was 1985 in Santa Cruz, California.
Wow.
A friend of mine named Chris Card invented it, and it used also a heat strip gun to function with a big water pipe. And I had suggested to him that we could get some sort of a small microwave device to either microwave buds or hash or whatever. And instead of microwaves, which he said wasn't practical and small enough and wasn't safe to use, he came up with this. And he spread it to all the buyers clubs in California. And then eventually it got around the world, and companies like Volcano and others got involved.
Mark McCoy too. For
Vriptech made an actual glass connector, which is a two-piece that you could actually slip your hot air gun into, and they promoted the Steinels. And why the Steinels is because the Steinels had a ceramic core as opposed to a metal core.
And no asbestos.
Correct, no asbestos, so you were inhaling it. I used to roll into parties with the Vriptech and a bong and just destroy parties and then quietly just disappear, and people were like, what the fuck just happened? It was
same. I still have mine right over here.
They were doing it with weed. They weren't doing it with hash, right?
Correct. We were only doing it with weed. We were not doing it with hash. You are correct. No way, shape, or form were we even thinking about hash, because we had access to more flower than anything. Again, this is the late 90s in LA and stuff like that. So I got one of the first machines, the original isolator machine, when I worked at the Galaxy Gallery back in 97, 98. So, and that's when we started playing with hash. But before then, it was strictly just, what we could do with flour. And prior to that, the only extent of a vaporizer that I had heard of was that cheap piece of shit that they sold in head shops. Some friends of mine grabbed when I was up in Pennsylvania. They grabbed at a head shop, and it was a plastic piece with a soldering iron with a flat soldering, kind of a piece and a glass piece over it. And
the BC vaporizer.
Yeah, it was just
they sold like 12,000 of them or something.
Make those things. That was crazy.
It was the worst thing ever. We were so excited to try it. Once we tried it, it was like, this thing is awful.
Did you ever get to try the volatizer from David Wheeler? The small little wand that fit into a quartz bowl? Because prior to that, I was vaping with the Vriptech, and I was condensing the oil in the glass stem of the Vriptech bowl, and it would be a red oil, and I would dab it, smoke it on a little bit of bubble or whatever. And then this volatizer came out, and the whole bowl was quartz, and it was the first quartz vaporizer that I'd seen. And what I noticed was that the oil, when it was turned into a vapor and then precipitated back into a liquid in the stem of the quartz, that it no longer did that into an orange or a red liquid, but it precipitated back into an absolutely gold liquid. And that was like a huge sort of revelation back in like the late 90s or whatever.
Wow. That's cool.
Another thing nice about the Reflux is that they give you this little for the bowls. Well, this is the bowls, because even though they're glass jars, they're what fits into the Restec, the Reflux, and it works really good because you've always got a clean one, and you can see those ones are the used ones. These are unused.
Yeah, that's sweet to have that many as well.
Yeah, it's nice being able to preload your full day if you want to. I'm figuring I'll probably go through 50 loads at the Emerald Cup in a day. Something like that, just rapid fire.
Oh my
God. You need a rotary feed like I have on my gas chromatography. It holds 96 little bottles.
Oh, like a revolver. That would be sweet.
I gave out like a pound of oil at one of the cannabis cups. 50 loads might be low.
Yeah, you gave it to me, don't you remember?
I gave it to like 1,000 people. No, I get it.
I can't
just
even.
constantly change my clothing and got them all.
I used to give around 100 grams in dabs out at the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam, and I did it for, I don't know, like a decade and a half or something. It ended up being a fair chunk of hash for sure to give away in dabs.
Literally a pound in a day.
At Legends, we definitely smoked more than 100 grams.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. But it wasn't all mine. I wasn't gifting it to everyone. Although the Legends in Vancouver
the
was.
first couple Legends, most of it was mine. But after that, everybody had really great stuff.
I'll tell you, people, that's what Legends helped. It helped people step up and be like, I want to make hash like that. Like it seemed like there needed to be a thing. It was there just needed to be a little light at the end of the tunnel that people could catch a glimpse of and be like, you know what? I saw it. I'm going for that. I'm going to get there. And then they start, growing exceptional cannabis and processing exceptional hashes. And I just can't imagine. Go ahead.
No, please. You were talking. You can't imagine
I was just gonna say how many amazing people over the years I met that just wanted to come to Legends. And the original way to get a ticket to Legends for me was to show me that.
Every time.
Frozen.
Every time.
No problem. I'll finish it for him. The way to show was to show really good hash to Marcus, and then he would let you in with that entry.
Yeah. And I never took any of the hash. I never smoked it. I just would look at it and be like, yeah, that hash should be in the room at Legends. And that's how we filled
really
up
cool.
the room each year.
And now look what it's going to, and it'll just get bigger. And so, I was just going to say, it's nice to recognize, which we talked about before, was at the origins of, hash making, and some of the hash in like Malana in India are just having just such hard times right now. So any way that people can learn about what's happening in Malana and Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, all the the mountainous regions and parts of India, India is corporatizing their cannabis right now, like lots of other countries have in the world. And origin cities and origin hash making places in India right now, a lot of those families are going to jail. And Hemfati on Instagram is a woman that we've connected with over the time. She's active on showing, what's going on there, and we appreciate her for that. So, anyone that, loves hash and, and maybe has a voice somewhere that can help out in India, and write the correct people and stuff, it would be greatly appreciated, because, there's out of thousands of people, hundreds are in jail right now, and they don't know where they are or even, how to proceed with court cases and stuff. So, grandmothers and grandfather hash makers right now, getting swooped out of their mountain villages and brought to a prison somewhere is, super crazy. So
have you been to India and visited those places?
I have. I would like to do it more, but we did a trip up the Parvati Valley and spent time in Kassel and up in Tosh and up in Rashol and in that area. And we didn't go up to Malana, but that whole kind of Kulu and zone we did see that. We went to Dharamsala and to Maklod as well, and watched the Korah and spent time learning more about the Tibetan teachings and also their refugee statuses and the whole Free Tibet movement and what's happening to Tibetans in India. I mean, there's people all over the world in strife. So yes, we have been there, and we've continued.
Years and years ago, the only country that was making both hand rubbed, dry sift, Gurda, and was Kashmir. There was no other country in the whole world. Kashmir was the first country to be making both types commercially.
And now Pakistan just legalized, I hear. And I heard Imran Khan just like cut ribbons at a brand new, like, you know, open cannabis farm in Pakistan. And also, did I hear right that Dubai is now open to cannabis? There's new laws passing in the world that are pretty mind-blowing.
That's nothing. So has Malaysia.
Well, that's the connection, is that like Dubai and Malaysia making, and what I think the Queen of Dubai potentially is working on like a CBD product, but then that could open up Indonesia.
Don't forget about Germany. That's huge.
Yeah, well, and then the seed companies that got busted in Spain. So there's like a crazy, bust that happened in Spain, and there's a huge seed company transition happening in Europe. So Europe's really it feels like there's a lot of flux happening there at the moment. I'm not there, obviously, but we have a lot of family over there, and it seems so. Yeah, Germany, lots of places.
When the seed bust happened, I could actually hear your voice, Sam, saying, "Well, they broke international laws."
Yes, well, they did, but the real problem, I think, down there was, I'm not exactly sure of the circumstances, but it's not legal to cultivate in Spain for seeds or for weed to sell unless you're licensed by the government. And none of those companies were licensed by the government.
Got it.
So I'm guessing LaGuardia ran through their shit. Is that what happened?
I'm not sure exactly what happened in Spain, except for that there was a big mix-up.
So I was told it was their version of federal agents. I don't know what that really, what that looks like, but
I know that the court case that they're in right now over it is definitely a potential, transformation of European laws. We know it because it is such a big court case, and there's pretty large seed companies involved. So, I hope it all works out, in favor for the companies involved in there, because some of them are pretty close friends with ours. So,
yeah, that's a shame.
I don't think any of the seed companies selling seeds from Spain, the research companies are licensed, but I don't think any of the seed companies selling commercially are actually licensed by the government to produce their seeds. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Seems like a big open space that nobody's filling. I guess they just...
Well, no, that's why they went down to Spain, to get out of Holland. And and then they didn't follow all the Spanish rules, because, see, you could sell seeds from Spain, but you have to have a place you produce them. And if you produce them in Spain, you have to be licensed by the government.
But what about Portugal?
I don't know what the regulations in Portugal are, to be honest.
I get a feeling they're a lot looser.
Yeah, I was under the impression a lot of people are doing it through Portugal, but I don't really know.
Well,
drugs have been decriminalized there, right? All drugs.
Yeah, I'm heading there in July, so I'll ask around.
You have a mission.
Yeah,
well, it's really simple.
Distribution points for what kind
is it legal to grow cannabis? Is it legal to grow cannabis in Portugal for seed production? That's the question, and I have no idea.
No one does.
I was going to say that. I don't think anybody does.
When I moved to Holland, it was. You could grow in greenhouses, and as long as you did not divert the cannabis to illegal markets, the seed production was legal. That was till about 1998 or 99, I think they changed the law.
I think Switzerland has areas where it has favorable laws, and we want to shout up our Switzerland family out there, Edelgreen Swiss Farm, and everyone out there doing amazing work. Yeah, there are jurisdictions that are doing well, and also I know that always people are looking for a better spot. So,
well, I know a couple Swiss breeders who have now moved into the U.S. There's one big breeder down in Oregon somewhere with high CBG and a lot of different varieties, but they originated in Switzerland. I think maybe part of the regulation that we're dancing around here is the fact that they couldn't have a decent seed export business. So they set up here in the U.S. and are now producing seeds here in the U.S.
Yeah,
and what they have a bet because they want to sell into the U.S.
I'm pretty sure
they want to sell into the U.S. and Canada and elsewhere, and they can produce seeds in the U.S. And I know that they're crushing it out.
The genetic backgrounds for that Swiss material came from Italy, if it's what I'm thinking of.
Interesting.
I think you're correct. I think that's right, Sam.
I have info on Portugal, according to the internet.
Yeah, I just found some too.
It's still illegal to grow, but they have industrial hemp law, and most likely any relevant seeds would have to come from a plant that you can't legally grow, unless you found some way to get a THC-bearing strain through the industrial hemp regulations. So it looks like there's a lot of stuff in flux in Portugal.
We were talking to a guy on the Adam Dunn show the other day about tissue culture. And does tissue culture get around the regulation on seeds?
Probably not, because a lot of the regulation is not just seeds, but like in Portugal, for example, it's illegal to grow, period.
So like a plant
have a germplasma?
Yeah, like germplasm would probably still be considered.
Illegal. Okay.
You get into some
DNA
really interesting.
Is not illegal, but the plant itself, if it's a little mini clone or grown through cellular culture, is illegal in most countries in the world.
Yeah, but I mean, like some of these things are just sort of like, it's like a little sachet. I think these things are usually filled with alginic acid, and it's just basically a piece of meristem. I mean, you'd have to do some microscopic analysis to determine that it was cannabis or hemp.
Yes, but if that was done, then it would be illegal.
So, someone just asked in the chat, Oregon CBD company, they're working with university out of Mississippi or something they're saying, or just a university. I don't think it's Mississippi, but I would believe that's under the federal guidelines of the hemp bill, right?
Yeah, that would be under Dr. El Sole at Oxford University, correct?
Got it.
Oxford University. Wait a second.
University of Mississippi and Oxford. Mississippi.
Yes. Big
Excuse me. Yes, Oxford University at Mississippi. Correct.
Yeah, they're not the same place.
Yeah.
Oh, Mississippi.
Yeah, they got better catfish in Mississippi.
Just wanted to give thanks to everyone today. We're going to take off and enjoy this beautiful Sunday. Super cold and lots of sun. Got snow on the ground.
Love you guys.
Beautiful days.
Hey, will we see y'all next week at the Emerald Cup?
No.
Unfortunately, we won't be able to make it, and a few of the farms will, but it's, big up to Tim Blake and the family for making it happen. Much appreciation. There's some good regenerative talks Jesse's putting on, and some of our farms are involved with. Definitely anyone involved, go check in with the family at Emerald.
And we'll
Cup.
be sad that this year the teepee will not be up, and it will be sort of the first time in a really long time that it's sort of, it really sort of defines what's been going on these days. And we're sending all of the love and all of the gratitude for everybody who's gathering and still joining and celebrating cannabis in the community. So we're not going to be there. We'll be sad, but we're stoked everybody's getting together.
Yeah, hopefully next year it changes.
Yeah.
I know that.
Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for coming. I wanted to, thank everyone actually for coming. Thank Kylie for coming in from Indux Labs. Thank Nick for coming in and sharing, his experiences and information. Always a pleasure to see Dr. Mark and Etienne, and appreciate you coming in, Brian, and of course, Colin and Wade and Etienne. awesome to have both of you in as well. Awesome to have Dr. Allison slide in for a little bit earlier, Josh and Kelly, and everyone really who's been watching, the 333 people who are watching this very minute. Appreciate you all. Go have a great Sunday with your family, with your friends, with your pets, or by yourself, whatever you prefer. But I'm going to go spend some time with my little son who's been anxiously awaiting my presence in his life.
How old is he now?
He's 7 years old. He turned 7 in August, so he's a young 7.
Do Canadians understand high fives? Have they gotten there yet? All right, give them one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys maybe next week or the week after. I'll be in touch. Thank you for watching. May the full melt bless your bowls sooner than later. Peace out, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks, Marcus.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks again, man. Peace.
Peace.